Welcome everyone to our board meeting of Thursday, April 4th, our regular board meeting. Call to order. Today is National School Librarian Day. We have some amazing librarians in Cupertino, so I hope they're having a happy day. Do we have any public comment under closed session?
I think.
Did you want to start with roll call?
We have to do board agenda. We need a roll call motion. From board agenda.
Roll call.
Can I go out and come back in? Roll call. Thank you.
Okay. Trustee Leong.
Yeah.
Trustee Manhattan.
Yeah.
Trustee Chow.
Here.
Trustee Liu.
Here.
Trustee Vogel.
Sort of here. Okay, now we can do board agenda. We need a motion.
So,
go.
please,
I'll move.
Sylvia.
I'll second.
Okay, and Jerry, thank you. Roll call vote.
Yes. Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Liu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Do we have any public comment for closed session?
No, we do not.
Then we will adjourn to closed session and return at 6 p.m. We're back from closed session with nothing to report. Welcome, Eaton students, staff, and community. We're always glad to have you. And we have some special people who are going to do our flag salute tonight, and they are the Eaton Student Council Cabinet. Dawan Nam, Ananya New, Ashley Steele, and Lynette Liang. So if you four would come forward to the podium up here and lead us in the flag salute, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So it's always exciting to have our school presentations, and tonight we have Eaton here. So Eaton's principal, Cynthia Ho. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Good evening, school board and CUSD members. My name is Cynthia Ho. I'm the principal at Eaton Elementary School. We are thrilled tonight to be here. I have a big crew and we're really excited about it. At Eaton, we're working hard to continue our tradition of academic excellence and also cultivating a school environment where students, staff, and families feel connected and valued. Here are a few highlights through pictures, including teachers and students helping to lead our monthly PBIS community gatherings, class popsicle parties when they're collecting their high flyers and they get their class reward. We have our SDC classes working with our amazing team of IAs and support staff in differentiated instruction. And of course, science camp. Our community works hard so that we can play hard. We are fostering an environment where we value collaboration, inclusiveness, and teamwork. Students Council plays such a vital role in that, and you just saw quite a few of our cabinet leaders leading the way. We have character days like we have in the middle there. We have buddy classes where upper grade and primary grades work together, get to know each other, and have fun together. They support each other and staff collaborating to support students. Lots of great things happening. Tonight, I've invited a few special guests from our school community to share about their experience at Eaton. One key to our success is our partnership with the Eaton PTO. So tonight we have our PTO secretary, Liz Sakamoto, here to speak about how the PTO helps to bring our community together.
Hello. So Liz Sakamoto, nice to meet you. Yes, so we, as our clicks the button. There we go, the Eaton PTO. As you can see, we are a group of, at the moment, mainly moms, but we have a couple dads who step in, especially for volunteer, but our actual PTO team is all a group of moms right now. And we all have a passion for our students and for Eaton. And our main goals, is to build a community. And I've been at Eaton now for 4 years. I have a third grader. Yeah, so 4 years. Yeah. And now a kindergartner. And we started with the pandemic. So we've had to grow a lot in those 4 years. And we have really seen the community come together. And we've done a lot of fun things. I don't know if you've heard about our Boo Bash. We had a tremendous, huge haunted house and Halloween festival that all the parents and the kids just are anxious and excited for. And that's how we kick off the year in October. And then we just have been doing things all throughout. And we also, get together, raise money for the librarians, for music, for art, Project Cornerstone. If you guys know about, obviously you should know about Project Cornerstone. Is this one? Did you add this one?
You can try the next slide.
This one, okay. So we make a lot of memorable family experiences and events, and we're really building on getting us all together. And it's been great just to see how the families have been growing and getting together. We have a couple of things coming up. We have a STEM fair, which is really exciting. We actually have 40 projects that different kids, groups, and regular are going to be presenting. And then at the same time, we're building our community within Cupertino. We're having Code Ninjas come, and they're going to actually present to our kids. So we have an hour of the kids presenting, and then we have Code Ninjas presenting, and we even have Cupertino High School coming, and they're going to do. So we're just kind of building all this community within. And then we also have our international fair, which I'm really excited about. We did this last year, and they did it before, but we brought it back. And it's also growing our community with our cultural differences and bringing those to the table. My daughter, even though I've tried to get her to try boba 1,000 times, not until international fair did she try boba with her friends that she was like, I love boba. And so it's one of those experiences, so we really love that. And we love just all the things that we get to do, and seeing everybody come together, and even the kids start to recognize you, and just they're always thankful. We get special thank you notes just because they are so thankful for what we've done and how the community is growing together. And the kids really look forward to stepping up and participating with us as well and helping in different ways. So, yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
I had, if anybody wanted to look, I brought our newsletter. Ooh. So I'm just going to, should I pass it around? I don't know what the format is, but.
Great, awesome. We love it. Thank you, Liz. I love this quote, right? It takes a village to raise a child. This is true, but it also takes a village to be human, to feel connected and to thrive. And so, parents in our community are a big part of that. And right now, what I'd like to do is invite a few of our special Eton Eagles, the students. This is who we all do it all for them to share a little bit about their experience at school. So first up, we have Purvi Jitendran. She's going to come up and share highlight for her.
Hello, everyone. My name is Purvi Jitendran, and I'm delighted to represent our wonderful school. I would like to begin my speech by expressing my gratitude to Mrs. Ho for giving me this honorable opportunity to share my love for the school. When there are many things I want to share with you all, one thing I would want to focus on is the Green Team. The Green Team, which is coordinated by the Student Council and our loving principal and teachers, is to maintain a clean environment in our school and to encourage eco-awareness in the students. As you can see in this picture, the students wear vests and use grabbers to pick up trash around the school. Running the Green Team table, as we call it, has not only provided the Student Council with the sense of leadership, but it's also offered us the chance to connect with many individuals we may not see on a regular basis. As a school-wide program, the Green Team has given me a chance to learn about every student. Each one has their own story to share as they pick up their vests and grabbers. And the Green Team has impacted our school in more ways than I can explain. I hope many students in the following year can take part of this inspiring initiative. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Purvi. Next up, we have Skylar Moon.
Hi, my name is Skylar Moon, and I'm a student in room 15. I'm grateful to be invited to speak before you about why Eton is an awesome school. Many different people have different opinions about their schools. For example, my opinion about my school is that I think it's awesome, and here's why. At Eton, some kids have been in this school from kindergarten all the way to 5th grade, and I'm sure they made some friends on the way, but I think it's always good to make new friends. One example of this is when I first joined Eton in 4th grade. As a new student on the first day, I was feeling a little nervous. But when I went in class, my teacher told me to sit with a group of very nice girls, and she was right, they were very nice. Once I sat down, they introduced themselves to me, and their kindness made me happy to be their friend. That is one great example of how we show kindness at Eton. Another reason why Eton is a great place is because of their awesome teachers. Our teachers work hard to understand us. At first, I thought 5th grade would be really hard, but it turns out it's not super hard. It's actually really fun. For example, my teacher explains whatever we're learning really well, which makes it easier to understand. I also know that 5th grade teachers work hard to make to make learning memorable and fun. Examples include building our own ecosystems and having the option to go to science camp. Science camp is a fun 4-day and 3-night trip in the Santa Cruz Mountains, learning fun science adventures. At Eton, not only your teacher can help, but everybody at Eton can help you with whatever you need. Before I end my speech, I also wanted to thank Mrs. Ho for inviting me to this meeting and spending all your time and effort to make our school a better place. Thank you all for taking your time and effort to listen to my speech about why Eton is a great place.
I did not bribe them, I promise. They're just very sweet. And lastly, we have Layla Safabaksh coming up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to Mrs. Ho and you all for inviting me to speak here. It's an honor. My name is Layla Safabash, and I'm a 5th grader from room 16. This is my sixth year here at Eton, where I started as a kindergarten. And to be honest, I couldn't think of a better place to attend. Teachers here have taught me what I know and shown me kindness that I will carry with me forever. Eton's community is a special, growing group of students and teachers that are so different in so many ways, yet connected through our learning, friendships, and open minds to new prospects and relationships. From an early age, Eton encourages us to be confident in what we have to offer, and as older students, we have learned to be open-minded to many different perspectives. I've witnessed kids from all grade levels and classrooms helping each other all the time. For example, there was this group of older students who wanted to play a game called Foursquare. However, all official Foursquare courts were already occupied. One of the students in this group suggested that they divvy up and join already existing court games. However, some of the less confident players in this group feared that the quote better players would go too hard on them and they would lose instantly. While they were pondering their dilemma, a few younger students were walked by and immediately pointed out an unofficial area of the blacktop that the older group could use as their court. The solution worked perfectly, and since then, I've seen both these older and younger students waving and smiling each time they pass each other. This simple act of kindness, in addition to countless other examples of how Eaton's culture unifies different people, reminds me of something that my teacher said. Kids that can work together can play together, and if we work hard, we can play hard. Case in point, so many of my friends today started out as strangers from different backgrounds with whom I connected through many classroom interactions. Our teacher, principal, yard duties, and all the staff at Eaton are fabulous role models, and I hope that in the future, Eaton remains just as amazing and collaborative a place as I have experienced these past 6 years. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to speak, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Eaton Eagles. A good story about Foursquare. We like that. Thank you so much for our speakers. Thank you for having us tonight. It's really an honor for me to be a principal at Eaton, but also for us to be here to share some of the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia and Liz and all of the students. The best thing we do on the board is have kids come and present to us. So it's awesome to have you. And I'd like to have the two, Cynthia and Liz and all the kids in the middle so we can get a picture, please. Love to have you all stay, but you're welcome to move on if you have other things to do this evening. Next on our agenda, we have Classified Employee of the Month, and I believe Mike Pellini is doing that tonight. Welcome, Mike.
Good evening, Superintendent Yao and board members. I am here representing Mike Gelber and Human Resources, and we do a Classified Employee of the Month. And I know that Prabha Swami is here, so come on up and you can just stand up to me. Come on. Norma told me, so I know, you could come closer. So I'm gonna read some great things about you, and then some other people are gonna come say some really good things about you too, okay? So on behalf of the staff at Garden Gate, here's what was submitted about Prabha. So Prabha is one of the most dedicated aides and educators I know. She goes out of her way to find materials for English learners and struggling students. She will often be seen looking for books of interest of struggling readers and helping to pantomime and translate lessons for ELs. She also uses her lunchtime to meet with each teacher to go over specific students' upcoming workload and hear about areas of struggle. Also, Prabha tailors her instruction to the needs of every individual student, taking into account their passion and areas of interest. She maintains a positive and enthusiastic attitude towards her responsibilities. She goes over and beyond to help all students and teachers at Garden Gate, and we appreciate her so very much. But there's more. Prabha goes over and beyond to help all students by finding different resources on her own, making booklets that can be used as extra practice, and using different techniques to reach out to all of her students. She adapts seamlessly to the changes in the work environment, demonstrating a high level of flexibility in handling different tasks and responsibilities. She is very dependable and can alter the ways of explaining the topic as needed, as the need arises. And finally, as a part of the Garden Gate staff, Prabha excels in the team environment and contributes effectively to group projects. She is proactive in suggesting solutions for student needs and for asking for feedback suggestions to make her contributions even more meaningful. Prabha's dedication to her role is evident through her commitment and to the achievement and excellence in her duties. So we congratulate you on being the Classified Employee of the Month. I will invite Norma up, and I see there's some other Garden Gate Gators behind you. So come on, stay up here.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. So we're so delighted that Prabha is the classified employee of the month. There is no one more deserving of this honor. Garden Gate has been lucky to have Prabha as an instructional assistant for more than 15 years, right? More. She got her 15-year pin when I was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. So, and she's been working with our kindergartners and 4th and 5th graders. She has unwavering dedication, exemplary kindness, and a remarkable impact on our students. One of Prabha's strengths is her ability to work with our English learners. She helps them become acclimated when they first come to Garden Gate and becomes one of those first trusted adults that they can go to for help. She forms connections with the students she works with and really tries to find things that they're interested in so they can be motivated and engaged in their learning. Prabha can easily work with our littlest skaters, either reading stories or practicing letters or the alphabet, and then go and turn around and work with our upper grade kids, our 5th graders, on fractions in small groups. It's not really much of a difference when you're working with the little ones on alphabet and upper graders on fractions. They're both just as hard. And she is a lifelong learner as well. Whenever there is a PD for her to join in on, she's always asking, can I do that? Can I, do that? They send something to a classified staff. Can I go ahead and take those classes? And I'm like, of course. She works closely with teachers. She's a team player and everybody enjoys working with her. So Prabha is an amazing asset to Garden Gate. And we thank you for all you do for our students. Congratulations.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I didn't prep them for it.
Prabha, would you like to introduce family, or would you like to say anything, or do you just want to get on with the picture? Okay, so,
She's very humble.
well, congratulations. And if I've got some gifts for you, and then we'll get a photo. It's gonna be the best way for you to get. So this is a gift from the district. And with this a certificate from the district, which shows that you release. And assembly member Evan Lowe always recognizes our classified employees for that assist. So congratulations. Next item is communication from employee organizations. Erin, do we have anyone to speak tonight?
We do. We have CEA President Kate Lee.
Kate, welcome, Kate. Thank you.
Good evening, board, executive cabinet, all of our amazing CEA members and our wonderful CUSD parents and community. Tonight, I would like to provide further information for you in response to the special education presentation that Jennifer Willis shared with you during the board advance last Thursday. Her slides were really helpful. They were like a helpful SPED 101 overview to the different roles and responsibilities of our various CEA professionals, SPED professionals. And I think it was really good for you to get a better understanding of the complexities of our various special education professionals and their different job positions and how much they must manage in serving our students who have IEPs. But I'd also like to point out why the caseload and classroom numbers she shared may seem incongruous with the many emails and speeches you've gotten from our SPED members this year, which have detailed their own first-person experiences as SPED professionals in CUSD. You've probably been wondering why there was such a difference between the portrayal of special ed in our district and the numbers you were seeing in the caseloads and the class sizes, and what you were presented by SPED management and what you've been hearing from our SPED employees this year. The SPED professionals who are in the classroom all year long, all day long, all year long, every day, with our special education students and who are on the SPED and IEP teams, working together on IEPs every day, all year long, year after year. Well, as Eric Lee, our fantastic dedicated resource specialist from McAuliffe pointed out in when he was speaking at that meeting last month, is that when a numerical counting of IEPs is one IEP all equaling each other, does not really take into account what the actual time and work of each IEP requires. So I'd like to provide, and I ask the CUSD SPED management to also provide for you as well, a more realistic understanding of the workload our SPED professionals are under, so you can understand the importance of why we are asking for caps on our SPED caseloads and class sizes. The following data that I'm going to give you is from our own CEA special ed survey of all our SPED professionals. It was our first year of doing this survey, specifically to our members who are working under their SPED credentials, and we had about a 45% response rate. We asked, our first question we asked was, how does class size affect learning in your SDC classes? And here's some of their responses. Less progress, or larger the class size, the less progress, fewer opportunities for one-on-one support, more time spent on classroom management rather than learning and teaching. Justice in providing them access to academics and teaching with fidelity can be done only if the caseload is manageable. Too large of class sizes and a case manager's job becomes managing paperwork, and it's stretched too thin for actual teaching, individualizing, material preparations, and classroom management. They cannot target, those teachers cannot target each child's goals and progress or have time to prep the lesson plans that meet their specific needs. The students are not able to get the individualized instruction and attention they need to make progress. It limits their ability to meet their IEP goals. Those were their comments. And I'd just like to interject with that, my own thoughts. As I'm wondering, why aren't our students with IEPs and their teachers provide the same opportunities for individualized learning as stated in the district's priorities as our general ed students are? And what about each child and the whole child? We also asked, how is student behavior affected when class size is too large? Some comments we got were class size affects sensory regulation needs, which increases behaviors and makes it more challenging to be a successful learner. There's too little behavior intervention to support the class of the behavior interventionist from the CAP program. Our students with behavior plans are not getting the minutes of intervention supports that are required in their IEPs. Handling behaviors takes enormous amounts of time away from teaching academics. Too many students with a wide range of extreme behaviors in the same classroom disrupts services, resources, and flow of academic schedules for themselves and for the others. Classroom management becomes extremely difficult, with students exhibiting a domino effect of behavior challenges from one student to another. Safety of all students, including the medically fragile, get compromised. And I want to also make a comment about these comments, is that there has been a severe lack of behavior interventionists coming in and meeting the minutes of our students who have behavior intervention plans and their IEPs. And there's required minutes legally that should be being met. We've had a lot of disruptions, and I know there's been a lot of staffing issues for our behavior interventionists in the CAP program, but we need to solve this, and those people need to be in the classrooms working with those students. Another point to understand about why we need caps is that IEPs in our district have a much higher average than in other parts of Santa Clara County. A much higher average number of both minutes for services as well as number of IEP meetings, our partial team meetings. In terms of understanding what a single IEP really means, I'd like to share these numbers with you. 41% of our respondents do not get their contractual prep time. 51% don't get any prep time during the instructional day. 78% have to use their prep time for assessments and report writing and IEP meetings, so they aren't able to prepare academic lessons and SEL lessons for their students. 80% are assigned to more than one site, and only 18% of those are given travel time by the district. The rest of them, they have to use their break times, their lunch times, or their prep times to travel from site to site. Only 20% of mild mod SDC teachers reported that their students fit into that category, with 73% falling into the moderate and mod severe categories. 100% of our YCC preschool SDC teachers responded stating that the BI support, the behavior interventionist, is not effective. 100%. They work with students who are in one of the most essential age levels that appropriate interventions at that time can make the largest impact on their learning and on their school preparedness. And they are not getting the services that are both in their IEPs and what they need. Every IEP for an RS or resource specialist has a certain number of minutes of services. And our responding RS members have minutes that included 124,000 minutes for a year, 100 or for a week, which varies caseloads, and that doesn't also include all the initials. Some in terms of caseloads and with initials, we had numbers of 23, 24, 27, and 28. We did not see that in the slide presentation. The number of IEPs that they have to attend so far this year range from 20 to 57 meetings, individual meetings. We are only in April, and they have had up to 20 initial assessments for cases being tested for the first time. That's initials are when a student is tested for the first time to determine their service needs. And so those aren't even all of their caseload by the end of the year. In terms of our psychologists and speech language pathologists, which I agree with Satish's comment that should have been included, and we'd like to have that information, have you guys have that information in the slides. Based on their responses to the survey, psychologists have anywhere from 30 to 75 on their caseload. 57% of those students that they're working with are mod severe, and some have 6 hours a day of services. The time they spend on assessments and report writing, one example was 25 times 30 equals 700 hours, 45,000 minutes. Their number of IEP meetings range from 24 to 100 so far this year, and with anywhere from 10 to 40 initials. Our SLPs caseloads range from 27 to 45. Their service minutes range from 90 to 220 minutes per IEP. 5,400 minutes for the year, and they have attended 20 to 60 IEP meetings. So as you can see, a single IEP actually is a lot more minutes of services and the number of IEP meetings per IEP. So that is the reality of what it is like for our special education professionals and their students that they serve. And these are from the people who actually do the work day to day, year after year, and are with these students all day long. In closing, I'd like to bring up my concerns that the district negotiations team for CEA has canceled the bargaining session that was scheduled for this week and has informed us that they can't meet with our team again until May 21st because they need time to figure out what the costs of our proposals are. That's pretty unacceptable. Many of the proposals that have been on the table and been passed back and forth for quite a few months. And although the compensation one was just put forward recently in this past month, but they should have been able to. It's just hard to understand how the cost of the initial proposals that have actually been countered back and forth is unknown or is not specified out and determined. Because when we came with the proposal of the for compensation, that should have been a pretty simple job of realizing, okay, this was the cost of all the proposals that we've been countering on, and now we're looking at this additional 10 and 10. So I was able to talk with Mike and discuss my concerns, and we both agreed that both teams will try and find time if there's not full days available, because part of it is scheduling time. Everybody's days are really full, and we understand that. But waiting till May 21st is, how does that really solve and come to an agreement and negotiate an agreement together? It's pushing things so far into the year. So he's going to be talking with his team, and I've already talked with our bargaining team about finding some half days or after school hours. We are more than willing and interested in doing that. And so we will link back up on that when Mike returns. And I think that about covers it. I do want to say that you're going to be hearing about STEM scopes later. We would like to be able to keep some flexibility. And I think that with Elevate in our lower grades and STEM scopes in our upper grades and into middle school, we find, especially the STEM scopes, I used it last year at Faria and really found it was a really good science program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Next, we have public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Any speakers will have 3 minutes to speak, and we will not respond to those public comments on items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anybody to speak tonight, Erin?
We do. We have one person. Ofer Kadar, if you could please come to the podium or raise your hand if you're joining virtually. Go ahead, Ofer.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Ofer, if you could give us 1 minute to connect the sound into the boardroom.
Sure.
Ofer, could you test the sound for us, please?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, dear board trustees and Superintendent Yao, I'd like to share with you today some of the recent anti-Semitism incidents that happened in our schools in the past few months and ask for your help addressing them. Let me detail them one by one. On October 15, a kindergarten teacher in West Valley Elementary showed Middle East conflict-related content in class that led to bullying of a Jewish student afterwards. On January 18 in Nimitz, 5th grade, a girl was bullied in a school group chat for being Jewish. On March 6 in Stockholmire, 5th grade, the teacher discussed how Israel is performing genocide to the people in Gaza. On March 15 in Nimitz, 4th grade, a girl was bullied by a classmate who told her that hating Jews is good. On March 25 in Nimitz, 4th grade, a drawing saying, "Boo the Jews" was put on a girl's table right after recess. On March 20 in Cupertino Middle School, a teacher told a student that his Star of David medallion is racist. And finally, in McAuliffe School, a kindergarten teacher comes to school every day wearing a keffiyeh, which is seemingly politically motivated and triggering to many of the Jewish students. This, unfortunately, is only a partial accord of what's happening, since these are community members that know me personally and reached out for my help. I try to encourage them to report these cases, but as you probably know, most of them go unreported. Parents and students alike are still hesitant and concerned to report such cases. I'm here to ask the superintendent and the board trustees to address it. Let's guide our teachers to keep their political opinions and agendas out of school and hold them accountable. Let's enforce the district's zero tolerance for bullying also when Jewish students are impacted rather than brush it under the rug. Finally, beyond the case-by-case handling, we need to have a more systematic response to the rising cases of anti-Semitism. It is rising in the entire Bay Area, and our school students and teachers are not immune to what they see and hear over social media and other platforms. While we cannot control what is happening outside of school, you can definitely contribute to creating a safer, more inclusive, and less hostile environment in our schools for all students by training educators on what is anti-Semitism, how to recognize it, and more importantly, how to deal with that when it raises its ugly head. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofer. Anyone else, Erin?
No, there's not.
Okay, thank you. We are on to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Yao.
Thank you. So I wanted to do two highlights tonight. One is that this is our week that we have our new Taipei City guests have arrived, and they are over at Lawson. This year, they were able to bring 19 students and 3 chaperones. And just a reminder, this was one of our educational partnership cities that we signed about 2 years ago. Last year, they brought a group of about 16 students, so a few more students this time. They've had the opportunity, then they're actually paired up with a student from Lawson who they've been engaging in conversations and communication throughout the year. So Monday morning, they actually got to meet face to face over an American breakfast. and then got to start to really get to know each other. And then they accompany the students in their classes throughout the day, Monday through Friday. There's also some activities after school that they get to experience. They just finished up going to the dress rehearsal for Lawson's first musical. And then they also get to see some of the sites throughout the city in San Francisco. So it's exciting for our students to get together, and really the reasoning for that is we've wanted to have this shared educational and culture experience. Both sides learn so much from being together. And I think just watching the students engage in each other is really exciting. Our future plans will be that we will have our students go and visit New Taipei City. We are looking at different dates for next year. We actually wanted to commend the principal, Erin Leary, over at Lawson, who's been really instrumental in helping pull this together. And then two of our teachers, Asa Stern and Todd Butler, are kind of the contact teachers and help facilitate and work the buddy system. So a huge kudo to them. I know Phyllis was able to go and join for lunch. Phyllis and I did agree with them on Monday morning, and they lavished us with gifts and just very humble in how appreciative they are to join us. And we were somewhat worried when we heard that there was the earthquake in Taiwan. We checked in with them, and fortunately none of them were affected, and it was several hours away from their home. But when you're thinking about a 13 and 14-year-old away from home for a week and hear some of that information, I'm sure that can be rather devastating. But they were all fine and seemed to be doing well in class. So just really excited for that and wanted to share that. The other piece that I wanted to highlight, again, kind of going back, it was about a year ago this time. We had our classified employee, several of our union members had spoken at a board meeting, and one of their asks had been, would we explore the summer employee assistance program? And I know that the board was very interested in us pursuing it. And so the work of HR, we are participating in this year. We have 212 classified employees. Majority are under CSEA, a few from SEIU. There are 3 criteria that employees have to meet to be eligible for the program. So they have to be less than 12-month employees. They have to have been employed with the CUSD for at least 1 year. And then there's actually a salary income that they have to fall under, and it's currently $62,400. And so the essence of the program is that the California Department of Education created this incentive for employees can choose to have up to 10% of their monthly paycheck withheld. They would then get that money back at the end of the summer, and it would be a match money then from CDE. The matching isn't necessarily dollar to dollar. It depends on how many classified employees across the entire state participate. So it could be $1, it could be somewhat less, but it is money that they get back on top of their own money. There's a small cost to the district for the statutory benefits of it, but I think it's a lovely and it's a great opportunity for employees that aren't full-time 12-month employees. So we're excited to see as it grow. And I think for our first offering of it to have 212 employees take advantage of it is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So just wanted to share that update with you as well.
Thank you. Good news all around. Okay,
Thank you.
moving along to consent, we need a motion.
I move to approve items 9.1 through 9.17.
Okay, a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ava. Roll call vote.
Trustee Leong.
Aye.
Trustee Manhattan.
Aye.
Trustee Chow.
Aye.
Trustee Lu.
Aye.
Trustee Vogel.
Aye. Next item is information, the LCAP parent survey results. Is that you, Allison?
It'll be me and Erin, but I can kick it off.
Okay.
Yes, we're back in LCAP season, and the first step is, of course, checking in on progress, but also getting feedback from all of our partners across the system. And one part of that is doing our annual parent and family survey. And wanted to just start by saying thank you to all of our families who filled this out this year, and to all of our school staff, especially principals who kept at it with pushing it out and making sure that we could collect the feedback. Erin really did the bulk of this work, so she's going to be presenting the information, and then I'll wrap it up at the end.
All right, good evening. So Allison, as Allison mentioned, this is the third time that we have conducted this survey over the past 3 years. The questions are all the same, so it's nice to see how we have grown over time, how the categories have changed on those same questions. So the survey was sent during the months of February and March. And it was sent to all families and guardians via Parent Square. What's really nice about Parent Square is that if a family has their language set to a different language, it provides not only the content of the survey, but also the questions in that language that they have designated to receive that information in. Our participation goal for the survey this year was 22% at all school sites. This was a 2% increase from last year's 20%. I am happy to report that we did meet our goal across all school sites. In fact, we had close to 32% response participation. This slide shows an overview of the response participants. So we have the child's grade level. As you can see, it's pretty consistently across all of the different grade levels. Of course, we have a little bit less in pre-K and TK as they're kind of getting to know what the information is about. It also lists the number of children currently enrolled in CUSD. We have the largest at 1 child per family. It also asks the families to select which best describes their child. We had 67.8% select Asian. And then it also asks if their child is classified as an English language learner or if they're receiving special education students. And that would also include 504s. Is there any questions about the data? Okay. As I mentioned, the past 3 years, there have been different survey themes. So we have 5. One is culture and climate, communication, involvement, decision-making, and resources. So we divide the questions up amongst those survey themes. So going to the first theme is culture and climate. This year we had 93% of survey participants report an overall favorable culture and climate at their child's school. As you can see here, there are 3 bars for each question, indicating this year's, which is the boldest color, followed by the following 2 lines, which grow in faintness, showing the past 2 years of the survey. The next theme is communication. We had 89% of survey participants report overall favorable communication at their child's school. And I should note that overall favorable is defined as selecting strongly agree or agree in their response to that question. The next theme is involvement.
Do you want?
Sorry. Yes, go ahead, Ava.
Ava has a question.
Thank you for presenting this. You mentioned that these results are the combination of 2002 and 2023?
They are not a combination. They show the years past. So the first bar, which is the strongest in color, is this year's survey results. The second bar behind that is the results from 2023. And then the final third bar, which is the faintest, is from the survey results from 2022.
Okay, I also have another logistical question. For those who select disagree or strongly disagree, is there room somewhere later on in the survey for them to kind of help explain their answer?
There was no free response in the survey.
I wonder if there is some space or some sort of area if they feel like they could submit a response so that we can make room for improvements or try to clarify some misconceptions that may be out there.
Sure. I think, we're coming up on our next LCAP cycle. So we certainly can take a look at that at the next survey.
Thank you.
All good? No other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The next theme is involvement, and we had 82% of survey participants report overall favorable involvement at their child's school. Decision-making, 67% of survey participants report overall favorable decision-making at the school and district levels. Resources, 82% of survey participants report overall favorable sharing of resources from their child's school. And then this slide is a visual of the different themes and how throughout the past 3 years, the overall favorable percent change has either gone up or down or in fact actually stayed pretty consistent throughout the past 3 years. So over the past 3 years, there were a couple of goals we had set. And again, this is for the past 3 years. So the first goal was that in all categories, all LCAP areas, we would receive 75% agree or strongly agree. We almost met that goal. The one area was 67%, which was the decision-making theme. Goal 2 was to have 20% participation from each school site. We did meet that goal. And then we had 2 focus areas. 75% agree or strongly agree that their school shares resources and information. That goal was met. And then the final focus area was we approached our goal. The goal was 75% agree or strongly agree that parents have opportunities to give input in the decision-making process at the school level, and then that same goal, but applying it to the district level.
Yes, and these were our 3 LCAP goals we've had over the last 3-year cycle. We will be making some adjustments as we continue to match these to the emerging district priorities and reflect on the feedback that we get through this process. So we anticipate kind of the overall themes will probably be similar, but we'll be making some adjustments as we continue to go through the feedback cycles and alignment cycles this spring. And going to the next slide, we are in process with having all of our feedback sessions. We do a combination of surveys and forums and in-person meetings and virtual meetings. And this goes across lots of different groups. And it really takes all the way through the year because it even includes things like our EC visits as we go out to staff, or we're listening for those things that are going well and things that need to be improved. And this process continues into early spring. And then we use that feedback to develop the goals and actions for the coming year. So we are in process with all of that. And so far, we are continuing to hear a lot of feedback about the things that we shared at the mid-year LCAP update. Things related to the importance of staying the course with our work in the area of interventions, academic interventions, and also continuing to build out our social, emotional, and mental health supports for students. The importance of time for collaboration and professional learning around the district priorities. And then, as you know, we're having a relaunch, a refocus on our Portrait of a Learner and the importance of making sure that we provide time and resources and opportunities to celebrate the work along the way. So I'll be coming back with more on the LCAP as we continue with this cycle. We wanted to be sure to share the parent results that we received.
Okay, do we have questions or comments from the board? Sylvia, and then Satish.
Thank you for this. It's a really great presentation, and it's great to see the 93% of reporting favorable culture and climate. And I just want to kind of pause and give a shout out to all of the site leaders and all of everyone who's been working on sense of belonging, because I feel like as we've been seeing it this whole year, and every school that comes kind of showing how they're creating that sense of belonging at their school, it's great to see the impact of that. So that's very exciting. My question is about the number of responses. It's great that we have more this year than we had last year. And I'm just curious, do you think, and I know we've had this kind of discussion or question about, which do they respond to? District emails, site emails, other things. And I know we kind of agreed that they don't pay attention as much to district emails, but they really pay attention to site emails. And I'm just curious, like, what were the different methods of getting it out? And did you happen to measure the response rate depending on where they got the survey from? And I don't know, just some details on that would be great.
So the survey was sent out via Parent Square. We sent it out at the district level a couple of times. We included it in our 3 to 4 point Thursday. The principals really partnered with us to also put it in their school newsletters. And I did see quite a few sites actually that the teachers were sending out the information as well that the principals had posted. So you know, while I would love for everyone to read everything that the district comes out, I also think it's really, really important that the most read information comes from the teacher. And so we did try and approach it in a varied way. We sent out multiple reminders. And I do have to say, in comparison to some of the other districts around us and even throughout the state of California, this is a hard survey to collect information from, and our numbers are actually relatively high.
Satish.
Thank you. So I think a general observation is 22, 23, right? Everywhere it is, if you see it on each of the category, then the numbers are better than the current one. Okay? That is one observation. I'll ask the question later, but that's one observation here. And any thought on that? Why it went down? Because every area we have a little bit lower than last year or the previous year. Okay, that's one. Not previous year, under the last year when you compare. The decision making is one area, a little bit of concerning. It's a 67% overall good and in the sense, especially the last one out of that, right? About 1,500, almost like 50%, 35%. No, 30. If you take it 40 plus 40, 46% of the people were in the center or neither agree or, you know, more on the right side, right? So that's not a good decision, especially. So I think going back to Eva's comment here, maybe we need to get a little bit that, you know, what exactly it is rather than the number, right? So I know it will be hard to work on this actually, because 46% of the people think that they are not able to, they don't have an opportunity to participate in the decision making from the district level. That's not a good thing. So almost half of the people participated in the survey think that they do not have an opportunity. So that's a general statement, but what does it mean? Is it because of what kind of thing? If we can get, that'll be great, because definitely we need to have some kind of a goal on this thing to reduce it next year. So that's a thought on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Satish.
And if I could, you know, because we do take a look at this and, you know, I've had that conversation, like, you know, where do parents feel involved in? And, you know, we did decrease from the year prior and, you know, and then in retrospect, thinking about this year, we really didn't do any big district initiatives where in the years prior, you know, we went through closing of schools, we came back for the pandemic where I think there was more of a sense that it was more of an outreach that maybe parents had more involvement. And this year, again, it's been a pretty quiet year. We haven't gone out for any big changes or any big new programs that, you know, parents have been directly involved in. And that may be, you know, it's not an excuse. I think it's just looking at, you know, as we move forward, definitely we're going after a bond. And so that there's a lot more opportunities that we're going to be reaching out to the community for some of that input as well, that we may see a slight rise, hopefully see a slight rise.
Yeah. And these questions is mandatory question, or is it we created this question in the survey? Especially the decision making, what is the reasoning behind? Yeah.
Yes.
No, is it part of the
It is part of the LCAP feedback.
mandate? Okay.
And we kept the questions consistent because this is our third year into the LCAP, and so we wanted to be able to do a comparison. So we purposely didn't go in and change some of the questions. I think as we're moving forward in our next LCAP cycle, the feedback that we have and, the feedback from tonight, we'll take that into, and, we'll probably be adjusting our survey, but we wanted to continue to keep it the same so that we could do comparison, apples to apples.
Ava.
Yes, I do want to thank you for taking your time and taking a lot of the data and putting it in a way that it's easier to read. I think the colors, I think we can see up to 3 years behind each of the data points, right? That you have colored.
Correct. The LCAP is a 3-year cycle. So we did 3 years.
And I think, I know you have it like results shadowed, but maybe on the first one to say like, this is from the year 2023 to 2024, and just at least on the top one to kind of be a little bit more explicit. Because when you said shadowed, when you explained it to me, it was a lot clearer. So, and I know that takes a lot of time, making sure that all the data kind of aligns and having the same size. So thank you for doing that. And one of the decision making, if we could have the feedback from this upcoming LCAP to kind of say, if you put disagree or strongly disagree, to have something for people to kind of explain so that we have an idea of where we could improve on. I mean, it could be lack information. Maybe they feel like they didn't put in the stuff for LCAP or whatever the reason is. If we know what is the data out there to where we can improve on, that'd be great. And then I love the question that Sylvia was talking about, how we're getting the message out there. And my experience working with low socioeconomic income families, in which LCAP serves also English learners, homeless and foster youth and their families. That's what the LCAP is benefiting. And I noticed in the beginning, it says that of the ones surveyed, 35.6%, the child was classified as ELL. And since the LCAP is supposed to be benefiting, I wonder if there could be a little bit more explicit outreach in terms of, are we meeting their needs, since these services, the funding comes from the needs of these services for these students. Maybe a little bit more targeting besides emails. I know my experience, text messaging is the most accessible form. There's some people who may be doing jobs they're not used to receiving emails.
And just to add to that, Parent Square does text as well. So it's a great platform. It comes through in an email, a text message, and also if we download the app, which we have a little more than 50% of our families have downloaded the app.
Right. And I understand Parent Square, I've used it before myself, and to get your text message from Parent Square and also to get it into a determined language, you actually have to go in and input your information saying, oh, I want text messages, and give permission to, right?
No, it's defaulted for families.
It's defaulted?
Yes.
And then the language choice?
We did a big push last year in terms of asking families what language they wanted. We also have it in our opening day packet on the language that they would like, as well as we have trained our principals and our school secretaries and also our parent liaisons on how to support families on how to change the language. And I think this year we have close to 50 different languages set in Parent Square.
Do we have workshops for parents explicitly saying, if we want to change the language or have a short video or something showing where that language is at? And
we do share those, and I know our parent liaisons work with families all the time and getting that language set, as well as our district level community liaisons also work with families to have the language set.
And my understanding with the community liaisons, there are limited hours at each of the sites. The ones that has about 300 some hours are specifically at DeVargas and Nimitz. So I just want to be able to see that those which the LCAP original intention of benefiting are having the most opportunity to give that feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
That's
can
it.
also add, just to that point, for our homeless and foster youth, we make individual phone calls to those families through our engagement office to get feedback beyond the survey as well. So that's another way that we address that issue that you were mentioning.
And off the top of your head, most recent data, how many homeless and foster youth students and families do we have?
I'd have to check the spreadsheet because it changes, every week, but I'd be happy to put the most updated numbers in the weekend memo. It's a small number compared to our other student groups, so that's why we're able to make the phone calls.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jerry?
I actually don't have any questions or just comments, okay?
Sure.
All right. So first of all, Aaron, I really want to commend you on the visualization. I think good visualization looks obvious, but I know it's difficult to put together. I really appreciate the fact that you're able to get the historical data in there and not really distract from what we have. So that just looks really great. Thank you for that. And I also wanted to just kind of make sure it doesn't get lost in the noise that we're looking at the 3-year sort of what we've done here at the end of the 3 years. This is actually really, really good, right? Except for that decision-making part, we pretty much have hit our goals. I don't see a lot of orange on there, right? I mean, some of the greens, it could be a little bit bigger. And, when I look at some of the grays in there, the neutrals, I'm actually pretty optimistic that those are folks that we can convert into greens. And so I know we're asking all these questions and all this, but I don't want the fact that there's 3 years of work in here and that we pretty much are there and hitting our goals. And that's really huge. So just want to kind of highlight that. So a couple of things, if we go to slide 8, I think the visualization on that bottom bar, maybe so if I look at the gray, the first 2 bars, it's about 10-ish%. The third bar is 20-some%, yet they're the same size. So I think that's probably, I'm sure you have the right numbers there. Probably the visualization is a little bit off. So just a note on that. But then if we go to the next slide, I think I really want to talk a bit about the decision making, because I do remember last year we had, that was one of the lowest, we had talked about it more explicitly. And so it's pretty much, where it is. And I wonder if there are just in going forward, opportunity. So I understand that this is a pretty quiet year, and then we're last year, the preceding year, and we're going to have some of the decisions coming up. But I wonder if we might just want to be a bit more proactive about this, and really, how they're saying you tell someone what you're going to do, you do it, and then you tell them that you did it, just to kind of, and we might just want to think about, are there opportunities for us to reach out to the parents, both at a district level and a school level, and say, we're explicitly asking you on your opinion on X. I don't know what X is, right? And then we get the survey and we say, hey, because you said X, we did this and that. Because I understand from our perspective, everyone can come to the board meeting and give input, and that is an opportunity to give input, but people may not see it that way, that they're like, oh, when did they ask me about anything? And so maybe I'm not trying to sort of design this on the dais here, but just, I guess general suggestion is maybe think about, are there things we can be more proactive in sort of driving this? Because this is really the only element that's sort of keeping us from having met the entire goal. And so rather than that, really happy with this. Thank you for all the work, not just this year, but really going for 3 years and the improvements along the way. So yeah, so that's my comments. Thanks, Phyllis.
Thank you, Jerry. I don't have anything more to say. I share the concern about the decision making. But I think we're on the right track. And I don't see the gray area as necessarily negative. I mean, sometimes when people ask me something and I have to agree or disagree, and I don't really have an opinion, but I'm not unhappy. So that's kind of the way I view that gray area. So I don't see it as a negative. I definitely see the orange and the bright orange as negative, not the others.
Some survey companies and, data analytics would agree that they actually include our gray in with the positive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree. I don't see it as negative. So Erin and Allison, thank you so much. Great presentation and glad to see the progress we're making. Next, we have enrollment task force update.
And just a point of order, there was no public comments on that item.
I am not doing well tonight.
That's right. Mike's not here to grade you.
That's good.
He's not here to give you that.
So this will be our fourth enrollment task force update to give you. So I'd like to invite Leslie Maines, who continues to facilitate and lead the group in the direction where we're going, and an overview. We will have one more remaining meeting this year after end of April.
We will. It's very exciting. Okay. So tonight's presentation is a little bit shorter than last time, because if you recall from our last meeting, we didn't get to our action item where they were going to break up in groups to have discussions. So I did not put all of the slides in here again. I know that you studied them last time. I did actually share 2 of the slides just for reference because they did ask for some additional data so that they could begin their work. So if you remember last time, I shared with you the open enrollment living wait list. And so that just shows currently, not with the new lottery that's happening. I think open enrollment right now is happening possibly for our non-alternative schools, or it's just about to happen. So these are our current 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students waiting on our this year's open enrollment wait list. Remember that families could have had 2 choices with this, whereas moving into the next set of data that Erin and Kristen will probably share, they'll only have 1 choice. I think that's all I wanted to say on this, but we'll be referring to these numbers, so it might be helpful for you. In addition to that, this is the wait list by the school that they're currently attending. So if you look at that first column, this is Cupertino Middle School. 2 of current Cupertino Middle School students are on an open enrollment wait list to get into Hyde, and they have not been offered a spot. 92 for Lawson, 13 for Kennedy, 35 for Miller, and 2 for Clip. And again, this is a combination of 6th through 8th grade students. And then we've got on the opposite end, the group of private school students that have chosen not to go to their neighborhood attendance school for middle school. They've chosen to remain in private, and they put themselves in the lottery for open enrollment. And they also are waiting to determine whether or not they're offered an open enrollment spot at a middle school. At this point in the year, we don't offer open enrollment slots to middle school. It's typically done in the spring, summer, early fall months, and it's done based on class size and the availability of sufficient space.
Leslie, I have a question about this slide. I'm having trouble reading it. If I look at Lawson and that first under Cupertino is 92, does that mean 92 students want to go to Cupertino?
The 92 is 92 Cupertino students want to go to Lawson.
Got it. Okay.
And we're going to dig deeper into that specifically.
Okay.
Okay. So then the task force at the last meeting left with 3 sets of data that they wanted us to bring back. And so as they were looking at balance, because their task is to make recommendations for balancing enrollment at middle school, they really wanted to dig into CMS, we know is our largest middle school. They also know that there are quite a few families from CMS that have open enrolled to go somewhere else. So they wanted to know, well, out of these Cupertino middle school families, how many of them are on the open enrollment wait list for Lawson specifically because of proximity? It wouldn't be a huge commute across the district. We know that Lawson's numbers have declined. We also know that probably 5 years ago or more, we did give priority through the lottery for CMS kids to go to Lawson for the purpose of balancing. So there are 99 students total that are CMS students that, I'm sorry, that are CMS students that have open enrolled. 37 of those CMS students want to go to sixth grade at Lawson. 27 of the CMS students want to go to seventh grade at Lawson. And when you look at the total number, that was from that previous slide. In addition to that, they were curious about Stockholmire, because Stockholmire, if you, depending on where you live in the Stockholmire attendance area, it's a large footprint. You may be closer to Lawson than you are to Cupertino Middle School. So they wanted to drill a little bit deeper into that. And so out of those CMS students who are attending CMS, live in the Stockholmire attendance area, 30 of them are on the open enrollment wait list for Lawson, and 18 of them are on the open enrollment wait list for Lawson for seventh grade. We excluded eighth grade because those kids are moving on to high school next year. Okay. So they looked at this data to come up with some of their recommendations or considerations for the board. In addition to that, we sort of had an oddball thrown in there, and it was really because of a conversation that Mahmoud and I had with the group, and we were looking at boundaries, et cetera. And they're like, wait, what is that? Tell us a little bit more about this. And so they did want some information about what we're calling Sunnyvale Square. I don't know if that's an official name, but maybe Kristen gave me that name. She's calling it Sunnyvale Square. So the yellow in the top right-hand corner is Cupertino Union School District boundaries. This is for those of you that are familiar with the area, it's the old Lomans Plaza, which is named something else now. So that is that Hollenbeck and Homestead on the left. The upper part of Hollenbeck is the strip mall that has CVS, et cetera. The bottom half of that of Hollenbeck, or the directionality, bottom half is better for me. The bottom half is mostly apartment complexes, and they all actually belong to Sunnyvale Union School District. We can't really find the historical documents as to why this ever happened, but when boundaries were drawn, that was Sunnyvale School District, and everything around it was Cupertino. And then years and years ago, I think there was probably some handshake agreement. I could probably name the people, but we cannot find the records of it, that basically said, if you live here, you can go enroll in Cupertino, or you can go enroll in Sunnyvale. We do know that Sunnyvale sort of encourages them. Well, you can go enroll in Cupertino because it's so much closer. Otherwise, they would be, going through Cupertino Union School District to get to Sunnyvale, to a Sunnyvale school. So most of the students that live in that area would attend Nimitz and Cupertino Middle School. Of course, because we give them sort of the right as a district, as if they're living in our school district boundaries, some of them, a very small number, most likely are probably attending alternative schools, but we don't believe that the number could be zero. And if there is a number attached to it, it's a pretty insignificant number. So what we did is because we were talking to this task force about middle school specifically, we gave them the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade data, just so they knew how many families are we really talking about. So currently in that white box, 22 students living in that Sunnyvale Square attend CUSD middle schools. Next year, based on that data, 17 students living in that square will attend CUSD middle schools, as long as they're still living there, or they just choose to go somewhere else. And then currently, just so you know, there are 48 students living in Sunnyvale Square that attend our CUSD schools in all. Okay. The reason why the task force brought this up is they were thinking about finances, and they were thinking about where does the tax, the property tax go to for those families living in there. It goes to Sunnyvale. They vote in the Sunnyvale school elections, not in our elections, because it is zoned for Sunnyvale School District. So it's sort of interesting. And their question is, I mean, they are a group that thinks about balancing, they think about fiscal responsibility. They brought up LCFF and basic aid, and although it is a really small number of families.
And maybe
They
to
did-
add just a little more context of it where, we did have a previous board member who had brought this up at one time and, we've had conversations about it. It probably wasn't as much of an issue when we were LCFF because those students were enrolling, they were counted as enrollment, we were getting the per pupil amount. Sunnyvale was taking the property tax, it was incorporated. Now that we're looking to shift into basic aid, we're not receiving any additional money for those students enrolling into our system, and yet we're still not getting that property tax. So that will be a further conversation.
Yeah. The task force did not come up with a recommendation for this, but they felt it was important that this data was shared with the district. The one thing I did share with them on a side note is that, Stacy and I have had many conversations about students and families. And if a decision was to be made, that I'm sure that we would look at not all of a sudden abrupting lives of students who have, they didn't make the decision that we made long ago that allowed this sort of reciprocity agreement. And I know that, it wouldn't be something if you had decided, I don't think the task force would ever recommend to just kick families out to the curb and say, sorry, this is your last day in our district. But they did not make any formal recommendation, yet they did dialogue about it. Okay. Yes.
I know exactly where that square is at on the precinct maps. I
probably
wonder-
don't go to the doors though on the precinct map.
No, because it's
They-
not in the voting area.
Exactly.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking as we are moving into basic A, where do we start with this? Do we start with the registrar of voters? I mean, obviously, we want to keep where the parents currently have their kids and where they want to be, but going forward, any new enrollment, like, where does it fall in whose district? And since it's kind of surrounded by CUSD, if we can maybe resolve or have a conversation with Sunnyvale. And I don't know where that would go with whether the registrar of voters, but I definitely do wanna respect what choices parents do have currently with their current students that are either enrolled with us or with our sister Sunnyvale School District.
Chris, did you, I think Chris.
Can I jump in real quick? As I was thinking about this, we're trying to figure out, is there a process or is there a way where we could bring this back in? I know from the standpoint of those that live in the community that there is a process that goes through the county commission where homeowners can petition to transfer their school boundaries from one district to another. I'm not 100% familiar with the process. There might be a process for a school district to go through and request that the county commission look at the prospects of it and then support a decision to leave it as is or to move it closer to the district of residency.
I would say what I would recommend is that initially, a conversation between myself and the superintendent of Sunnyvale would probably be my recommended first step.
And to respond to your comment, Chris, I think that county commission does regulate or at least make recommendations about these kinds of things. So I think that's where, if it progressed past the conversation with the two superintendents, I think that maybe would be where it would end up.
So this is just a data collection only, right? We are not taking any suggestion or decisions on this, right?
No.
Yeah, no, I suggest if this kind of discussion is needed, I think let's get it, because we all have an opinion on this, right? So not necessarily we have to be pushing them to Sunnyvale for that, like, just for.
Oh, you mean a discussion on a
Yeah,
future
I
agenda?
think, yeah, so this is good information, but let's not get into a mode of
Right.
moving people or disturbing them yet.
And the great
So
thing
let's
is they didn't make
understand
a
that, yeah.
recommendation.
This is a very sensitive thing. Yeah, it's a handful of students, so let's
Yeah.
be sensitive on.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
this is nine small apartment buildings. So if you look at it, I left off the addresses. We obviously have the addresses. I just didn't think that that was necessary. But each of those lines is a small apartment complex. And so there's a variety of small apartment complexes in that Sunnyvale Square. Okay, so no recommendations other than please share the information with the board. Okay, so then we're going to get into their recommendations and their thinking that they would like for your consideration. The two questions that they had is what could be discussed and considered that could lead to middle school balance, and what thoughts or strategies should be considered to attract students to different middle schools or back to CUSD for middle school. And once again, the group surprised us. So the first one was they just want to make sure, and Mahmood confirmed it was true, and Stacy confirmed it was true, that as we are looking at the numbers and the projections, that we understand, and the demographer is looking at new developments and new housing, and it is included in those projections, and it is. We didn't have it at our fingertips at the meeting, but they just, they said, well, so for example, the Hills or the Rise, the Hills at Valco, what are the numbers expected? Are they considered? And so we pulled that data out after they know, we didn't have the slide in front of us, but we told them that the demographer does report when they have the data to report. And so I encouraged them to go back and look at their demographer slides for that information. The other thing based on that conversation is they are wondering if, as new developments are identified, so we'll use Hills at Valco, the Rise as an example, should we be considering, should the board, the district consider designating those complexes to a different potential boundary, which you can do. When those developments are done, they typically come and say, well, what schools will these families go to? And at that point in time, the district could determine, well, instead of it going here because it's an independent school, let's have it go here. And so they do believe that as new developments are identified, that should be a discussion to see, is there a logical designation, even though it falls within a boundary. And they said, and maybe if you don't want to be firm on, you're automatically going to go here, even though everyone in the neighborhood around you goes somewhere else, could you give them a choice? And would that choice allow for some sway? And so they said, that's something to consider. Some of the areas that they came up with were, for example, Butcher's Corner. Typically Butcher's Corner, when it is completed, it will go to Stockelmeyer and to Cupertino Middle School. Is that the right designation? Are there other schools that maybe could take on those students rather than those two schools, which are the largest middle school and the largest elementary school? They brought up West Point, which is Arroyo Village. I believe, if I'm correct, that's the Oaks. That's the Oaks area. And then the Hills at Valco is what we know as Valco. Okay. They feel that the board should consider CMS priority to Lawson, which we had done years ago. Our current policy does, because of the changes that we've made in the language, does allow you to do that. They added, well, you could do CMS priority to Lawson, Kennedy, and or Hyde, and they do agree, and this has been brought up by the board, it's not that you would necessarily take all the students, you would potentially do a cap, because once again, the goal is balancing. We talked about timing of that, and because it sort of right now, it's hand in glove with the number of staffing. So you would either have to, if you were going to do that, you would have to assume those students are coming as human resources and the team is determining the staffing ratios. Because if you take 70 students from CMS and add them to Lawson, obviously there's going to be a sway in staffing. So there's a timing element to that the district would need to talk about and consider. Typically, we establish staffing, and then we fill the gaps with open enrollment. And so it's a shift in thinking, which we had already committed to do that shift in thinking for elementary school. So CMS priority to Lawson, Kennedy, and or Hyde. this was interesting. They said, you know what, when we look at Hyde, we're worried about the number of students at Hyde, and we're worried about the number of students that are open enrolling, not getting in, but trying to open enroll out of Hyde. And so they said, what if you were to take an alternative school philosophy, Murdoch, Portal, or Faria, and shift that over to a middle school campus? So there would be that continuous flow, sort of like, or like we have our CLIP program. And would that be something that our community would be interested in? It's not something we've surveyed before, but it was a thought. They thought that it might be useful to begin collaboration with Fremont Union High School District. And is there any appetite for a joint offer where you would say to a family, if you attend this middle school, let's say we're trying to increase Hyde. If you attend Hyde, regardless of where you live, Fremont Union High School District will allow you to attend blank. I can't fill in the blank because we're not Fremont Union High School District, but to see, is there a need that it could serve for us and equally serve for them? Unfortunately, our Fremont Union High School representative on the task force, because I would have been so curious what he had to say about it. He wasn't there that night. So I don't know. We'll follow up with him at the next meeting. So, you know, that would be a conversation that Stacy, like she would with Sunnyvale, would need to say, I wonder if this would work, if it would be of interest. They do believe we need to better understand the decline at Hyde and the open enrollment numbers. I think we understand the decline because we know what's happening in that area, but the number of students choosing or asking to leave through open enrollment is, they're curious about it. And, you know, we could all guess why, I guess, but I don't necessarily know if our guess is right or wrong. And so is there a way to understand that, that from our Hyde community? And they're concerned about the size of Hyde. So they would like to see, how do we augment it? Some questions they had is, how do we work with Fremont Union High School District, similar to the previous slide, to incentivize choices? The quote of the evening was, a belief that we are all far more attractive together rather than alone. So, and I told this member that I would quote him. I wouldn't give you his name, but I would quote him. They are wondering, and I think Jerry has talked about this, what's that measurement of success? Is, you know, okay, so if we are balanced, if we become balanced over time based on some of these policy changes and open enrollment shifts, well, then that we believe would demonstrate success. But they're also wondering, how long do you test something before you give up on what you're testing and try something new? And they didn't have an answer for that, but they are thinking about it. They looked at moderate projections and did some number crunching in one of the groups. And they said, you know, if we look out to 2029, if we have 4,165 students, well, if we have 5 middle schools and we are balanced, there'll be around 833. And is that okay with the district? Can you provide what you want to provide for students? Or if we only had 4 middle schools, we'd have about 1,041. And is that okay? And can we provide for students? So they're just throwing it out there. And we think that the board should always consider neighborhoodness is important. And we know it's important to community. We've gone through that. Fiscal implications of the costs of a 5 middle school district or a 4 middle school. And really, they want to focus back on the students is, can we provide what all students should get, regardless of the size of the middle school? They want to make sure that there's equity in program. The considerations regarding how do you attract people? How could we attract them back? Is elective programming. And so it was great. Sarah was there at this meeting again, which was super wonderful to have her there. I told her, I don't think they're gonna have any questions for you. And yes, they did. And they really believe that they understand the inability to offer equal programs at all schools. They love the fact that we're moving to 2 electives for all kids right now, being provided for all 7th and 8th. They love the idea that it covers the span and it's unique and diverse, but not so unique and diverse that there's comparison of elective programs here versus here. They do think this alternative school model may be of interest, but we'd have to ask the community. And they really believe that if you offer parents choice, you get to go here, then you get to go there, it's going to possibly incentivize a decision. So, our next meeting is April 30th, and we will be wrapping up our work for the year. And based on your conversation today, we may be taking back some of your thoughts and questions to the group for consideration.
So this is an information item, not a discussion item, correct?
Right.
So I'm wondering if we should just ask questions tonight and agendize a discussion at a later
Regarding this
date.
one.
But that should happen before April 30th. Are they planning to have a recommendation on April 30th?
I think for right now, their recommendations are what they had recommended, and whether or not you feel that they should be exploring something, you'd like them to explore something different. So I don't know. I don't know how you want to play that out.
When you say a discussion, are you specifically saying the Sunnyvale Square, or are you saying in general?
No,
just
I'm
all
saying
of
in
theirs?
general. We could do it tonight, or we could delay it.
Well, it's not a discussion
Right,
item
so it's
tonight,
really
so this
just
is just
discussion item,
information,
right.
so we do need to stick to that. We
Right.
could, if we can bring it back, we have the board meeting on the April 25th, which would give us time to discuss, and then we could share that with the task force for some additional information, if that would be the
So-
will of the board.
Or do you agree? Is that
Yeah, I
okay?
have a-
Questions tonight and then discussion on April 25th?
Yeah, is this, I thought that this will be for multiple years, right? This task force. It is not going to be over by April 30th. This will be a continuation
know.
process.
So when we established the task force, we did ask for a 2-year commitment for them. So one of our topics at our next task force will be to have that talk about them. Are they interested in continuing on the task force? Would they recommit? Do we want to open up the task force to additional? So that would be some of the information. We'd also like some direction, I think, from the board for what direction would you like for us to go? Would you like us to open it back up and get in new members? It has gotten smaller over time, and, the 2-year commitment, I think they've done great work, but, that might help us in the direction that we're going to based on what their recommendations are.
Because why, Phyllis, I
So
think that concern.
I think that would happen during the discussion meeting, not during this meeting.
No, I don't want to in a hurry to make by 30th. That's what I just,
Right.
yeah. So one meeting probably may not be enough then.
We could decide that.
That's something we can make suggestion about next meeting, but in the meantime, who has questions of Leslie?
There we go.
Oh, please.
Ava, do you
think-
have questions?
Yes, I do have questions. Just a technical question. You mentioned about the decline of participation. So how many members did we start off with, and how many members do we have now that are coming?
I want to say we had 18 to 20. Last meeting was our lowest attendance, but they, out of that 18 to 20, there are 15 that come regularly. So we didn't lose a lot. We had, out of the 18 to 20 members, there's about 15 that are standard. Our last meeting had small attendance. We have someone sitting on a grand jury. We had another one that had a kid's performance. We had people sick. I mean, that just happens. But I would say our core group of people that have really committed to this year as well as last year is about 15 individuals.
And when we formed the committee, we wanted to keep it right about 20 or less.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jerry?
A couple of clarification questions on the various ideas. I actually found them very, very creative. You're right. Some of these I wouldn't have thought of. The one about the continuation of Murdoch, Portel, Faria to Hyde. I wonder if you could say a bit more about the discussion. Because I'm thinking one elementary school isn't enough to feed one middle school. So what's the discussion? There would be multiple elementaries like this? Were they thinking a program within the mimiddle school? Or I'd like to hear a bit more about that discussion, if there's anything you remember.
I
that might be-
think they were specifically mentioning Murdoch Hotel.
Okay.
And then they said, well, we already have it for Clip.
Mhm.
McAuliffe already has it. You could do it for for Murdoch Portal or for RIA. And it would really be that the fifth grade students that are matriculating out of either of those elementary schools
Mhm.
would go to Hyde. They named Hyde because it was the smallest one. It was the focus at that time. And it would maintain the same philosophy of that program. They discussed that they knew how they knew that could be challenging, a multi-age program at a middle school. They said, but we're not the educators. You guys would develop that.
Right.
For RIA would probably be easier from a back to basics perspective. But they believe that alternative school philosophy is interesting to families. Those are our two of the three most popular alternative schools. And would that be of interest? And the curiosity was then if they go there, then where do they go from there? Which led to the discussion of if you go to Hyde and it is a special program that we're developing for as an alternative focus, and I don't know if it'd be the whole school or a band, then would there be a desire for some reciprocity with Fremont Union High School District, like Fremont does with the CLIP program going to Lynbrook?
Okay, all right, okay, thank you. I was-
So that's why they immediately jumped to, but if we did that,
then-
is there a purpose for us to begin a conversation with the high school district to see how do we make this work to benefit both of us?
Okay, all right, thanks. Thanks for that
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then so you also talked about wanting to understand better why the Hyde and open enrollment and why people sign up for that. Is there anything that prevents us from just asking other than we haven't done it? Are there any rules that would put, so we could ask if we wanted to? There wasn't, okay. All right. And then the last question is the idea about the new housing developments that come up, assigning them to schools. Is that something just generally that's typical is not a good word, but has that been done in other places? I'm just wondering about someone who lives on the east side gets assigned to the west side. That would seem a little bit
Right.
like non-convenient, but it's an out of a box. I wouldn't have thought of that.
And
So
we considered it
Mhm.
when, Butcher's Corner was being discussed when Stockholmeyer was at 1200.
Hmm.
And it was freaking out the community. And I don't remember the superintendent at the time. It probably was Wendy. And we were discussing at that time, if it were to come to fruition, there was no additional space on Stockholmeyer's campus, nor was there at CMS, and the ability to designate. And the idea was not to send families completely across the district, but is there a school that has a similar proximity? And a Butcher's Corner, you could, I'd have to look on a map. You could go to Eisenhower, I guess. You could go to Collins.
Sedgwick even,
Sedgwick
possibly
even.
there's a little corner there.
Yeah, Lawson is still probably Butcher's Corner to Lawson is closer than Butcher's Corner to CMS. So you would look at something like that. The one over at the Oaks, we looked at, it is zoned currently for CMS or Lawson. Lawson, I think it is. I think it's Lawson. It's close to Kennedy. Could it be zoned for Kennedy? Could it be zoned as a choice? So I don't think they, unless you're gonna bring back busing or something, right? I don't think the desire was to send kids forcibly across the district. But could you allow for choice? Or is there another one that just sits on the edge that would make more sense proximity wise?
okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks, Leslie. Thanks for this.
Okay, so we have this information that we can mull over between now and the 25th and come back with the ideas that we have for how we should move forward. Okay, did you have something? I'm sorry.
I don't have any questions, but I know, Leslie, you're asking for some feedback to bring back. Is that
It's
tonight
okay.
or?
I think the April 25th discussion will help.
Okay.
So we'll be okay, and that'll be before the next meeting, so, yeah.
Okay. Great. I have comments, but it's okay. I'll wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
It's
All
fine.
Thank you, Leslie, as
Thank
always.
you.
Good to see you. Next, wait, Mom.
No, we do not.
Association of Bay Area Governments. That must be you.
Chris.
This is Chris.
All right, thank you. Good evening again.
That's very important, Chris.
There isn't a formal presentation, but really more for information purposes tonight. We would like to bring back, staff would like to bring back a recommendation at our next meeting to move forward with becoming a member of ABAG. And I'll give you a little bit of context as to what this is. We've been purchasing our natural gas from a joint powers association. We don't buy natural gas directly from PG&E. We've been a member of SPUR, that JPA, probably close to 30 years now. SPUR has recently informed all of its members that they are ceasing the natural gas part of their program. And so they were then providing options for school districts. School districts either go back to PG&E or go with a option that actually SPUR procured another JPA. So SPUR requested another request for proposal with different natural gas providers, and they have awarded their business to ABAG Power. ABAG Power happens to be the JPA that the majority of the cities all around purchase their natural gas from. So just imagine we're just actually probably participating in a larger pool of governmental agencies for the purposes of securing natural gas and getting it at a more better rate, I guess, as far as buying. So the SPURS will discontinue procuring natural gas for its members as of July 1st. So we have to make some decision before July 1st, or if we don't, we will naturally go back to PG&E as our primary carrier. And so what are some of the differences between buying from a JPA versus buying directly from PG&E? Well, we all know we all have our own PG&E account, and there isn't a lot of control over the prices of electricity and natural gas, whereas buying natural gas from the JPA, there's a lot more bodies, a lot more purchasing power involved. So we would be buying into a pool of natural gas similar buyers, and we would be able to buy it at a particular rate. With ABAG Power, they guarantee that for cash flow purposes, your payment for natural gases will be pretty much flat throughout the year, and then they'll true up at the end of the year. So that provides a little bit of stability as far as the school district for budgeting. The one difference between SPUR and ABAG Power, that there is a capital deposit that each members pay. That money is there should they exit out of the JPA. So it's really just working capital that's set aside, but more or less it does act similar to SPUR. We buy power. They buy the power for us. We buy it at a certain rate from the JPA. And so all the information is here. Like I said, it's really, it's just a lot of things are required to join ABAG Power. There's a joint agreement that we would need you to look at. There's a resolution that we would need to pass. The bylaws are here. So it's just being another member of another joint powers of association group. Anyway, I'll entertain any questions.
And when are you thinking we should approve or not, or when should we consider this for approval?
We would like to bring it back on the 25th of April. That gives us enough time to actually get enrolled into ABAG Power. This would be as effective July 1.
Questions? Jerry and then Caleb?
So there are, it looks like, two kinds of agreements, a core natural gas and a renewable natural gas. Are we looking at entering into both or one or the other?
I don't know. That's a good question. I have to see what the differences are. I was just only looking at it from the natural, mainly natural gas.
Okay.
I know there's two different programs within the natural gas program.
Right, and there are attachments for both here. The one for natural gas, because I guess I always look at fees when I look at contract. And then the attachment B for fees is actually blank. So I think if you could chase that down, that would be great.
Okay.
I was reading a bit about this. I was curious, and it looks like the the intent, certainly cost savings is part of it, but I think it looks like cost stability. Because I was reading their new member packet, like if you join, then this is what you get and all that. And they talked about actually, like it's the belief of the membership that they value cost stability even more than just net cost. And I was just curious, is that something that's a concern for us? Cost stability? I'm just thinking, end of the day, we're a big district. Surely we can pay our natural gas bills. I want to say a bit more about that.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not a fan of PG&E certainly, but I'm wondering, given why wouldn't we just buy from PG&E? Because then you have this overhead of this organization, right? They've got a staff and they sign contracts and do all that. So yeah.
Sure. And then also to put in the context, we spend about $220,000 a year in terms of natural gas. So it's not a huge burden. As I was mentioning, really just for the purposes of stable payments.
Okay.
But yes, we can pay our bills at the end of the day. So
okay.
I'm looking at it more for stability. Just for the purposes of ease for staff to pay these bills.
Okay. And then in terms of staff workload, it would be the same working with PG&E or ABAC Power then.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Phyllis.
Ava.
Oh, yes. Thank you for looking into the alternatives and thinking ahead, Chris. I'm just guessing, do you think Spur is ceasing the natural gas program because of the state regulation of not having new appliances that are operated by natural gas?
I apologize. I don't fully understand why they are completely getting out of this business. Obviously, for business related reasons, but it might be the regulation. You might be correct. But I don't know for certain why.
But you mentioned that we are spending about $220,000 in natural gas. What machines or entities are we using natural gas for? As in our district, is it for the heating system or is it?
Yeah, mainly for the heating systems.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other things. Yeah, mainly our HVAC systems.
Okay. And then the follow-up question is, are we just considering and talking about natural gas? Are we still doing our electricity through Spur, or are we both switching both natural gas and electricity to a bag?
So with Spur, all we are in the natural gas part. Spur does not offer electricity, so we buy electricity directly from PG&E.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Is there any cost savings if we went to directly PG&E with natural gas?
Is there any cost savings?
Yeah.
If we went directly to PG&E, I personally think it would be most likely more.
More savings?
No, more cost.
More costs. Okay, less savings. Okay.
Because we're buying as a single entity directly from PG&E, whereas ABAG is buying for all these city jurisdictions, gas for everyone.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Satish and then Sylvia.
So is there first of all, in this contract, like, is there like a certain years we have to be with them or anything? Is there a flexibility on that? Just to try it out and come back? That's one question. That is there a?
Yeah, my understanding, we can pull out of ABAG Power.
Anytime. Okay. And now
after a year, I think it's after a year.
Yeah, I know we are talking more on the gas side, but at the same time, a lot of the solar stuff and everything we are doing it. Is there any plan for us to be moving out of natural gas to the more electricity? Especially we are going to have these panels and stuff like that, even with some investment. Because that, there are a lot of push for going away from natural gas, right? Even a community, and there are a lot of people are doing that anyway. So especially now we are investing in a bigger way in the solar around than every site or almost every site. Should we be looking into that as well before we getting into a bigger contract?
I think just because we're going into this contract shouldn't prohibit us from looking into the prospects of moving either away 100% from natural gas and moving all to electric, or continuing to have both electric and natural gas. I think a lot of it's going to be driven by, the local governments, whether or not, I know the city of San Jose has put a limitation on natural gas, any new natural gas, things like that. So I don't believe we have that constraint at this point in time, but we should still look at the prospects. And then to your question, to do something like that obviously would require us to make an investment to change from one technology to another. So something like that, would require us to make sure we have the resources to do that. But I think we should continue to look at, we do look at the differences of when there's a natural gas fueled equipment versus something that's powered by electricity. We do look at that.
Thank you.
So,
With the dissolution of offering the services with Spur, I'm assuming that a lot of other school districts are kind of in the same situation. So I'm just curious if you've been able to talk to any other of our neighboring districts and kind of find out what, and I understand that Spur is obviously doing their RFP and has identified a bag, which is good, right? But I'm just curious, have you talked to any other districts as they're making those decisions as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've inquired with a few, and some of them have gone off and found a different provider. So there are other providers other than Spur, ABAG, PG&E. There's other third-party providers out there. So those districts I've spoken to, some did go back to PG&E, but then some stayed with the recommendation from Spur, and a few went to another company called Commercial Energy. So I had conversations with Commercial Energy too as well, and I just thought that this was the best choice for us. But it's kind of a mix out there.
Okay. Could you just delve into that a little bit more? As you were exploring these other ones, what were some of those pros and cons that you were thinking about?
I mean, they all offer the same thing, basically the large purchasing power because of their membership. The one difference between Commercial Energy and ABAG Power, there wasn't a capital deposit involved. So Commercial Energy, you don't need to put down a capital deposit. This one requires us to put deposit. That was basically it.
And so the reason why this one's still better, even though it requires the capital deposit, is
I think it's because it's a lot larger group because of all the cities, all over the city jurisdictions. City Cupertino is one of them, but I mean, all the cities, San Jose, Santa Clara, they all buy their natural gas from this JPA.
Thank you.
okay, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Chris. And this will come back to us on the 25th.
25th with a recommendation to approve.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any public comment?
No, there's not.
Quarterly report on Williams complaints. I could give this one, there aren't any. But anyway, I think it's Allison's.
Thank you, Phyllis. Yes, this is our regular quarterly report and no complaints have been filed.
Great, thank you. Public comment on
No.
Williams? Getting better. Discussion item, recommendation for adoption of new instructional materials for science. We have Marie and Kai.
And Kai, yes.
Welcome back, Kai. We never see you anymore.
Nice to be back.
I made sure. So it's exciting to be able to bring Kai as our instructional coach for science here. So in a different capacity, we are excited to share with you about the pilot results that we've engaged in with the 3rd through 5th grade teachers. And so we will be reporting on that, and we will be engaging in discussion with you. So just so you know, the reason why we decided to do this pilot was in response to teacher requests and interest. There was some frustration with our current adopted curriculum, specifically coming from the 3rd through 5th grade teachers. And so we said, okay, well, let's dig in. We knew that Faria had a lot of good experience with the STEM scopes, and our middle schools also did. So we decided that, you know, this would be a good place to look and consider, and that would provide some continuity from third through middle school with the same curriculum. So we went ahead and gathered some pilot teachers. 13 of the 17 schools that were considering the pilot, Berea being the 18th school, didn't need to be on this team. They were represented. We had a number of teachers coming from the same site. We had really great participation from Garden Gate and from McCullough, which was great to see. Murdoch Bartel as well, and Stockelmeyer. So it was just a terrific team of teachers that decided, yes, we want to do this. They were a very committed group. And they just jumped in. And we made it a point to make sure that everybody was invited. So we didn't turn anybody away, and just had this wonderful group. So we piloted in the fall, and we started off actually right in the beginning to look at the curriculum. We gathered it, and they actually piloted through December. And then in January, we evaluated the pilot. We used the same tool that we had used in the past. So this might look really familiar to you because I've presented it before. So we used the next generation time tool. And this is just kind of a reminder. The evaluation tool was one where it has a forced consensus. You know, the team needed to either give a 1, 3, or 5, no in between scores, and they had to really talk about each score. So what you're going to see represented is the results of the conversations that they had and how they came to those scores. I also want to mention that what we're presenting you is a larger graph that shows the results of the 3rd through 5th grade deliberation. But then we also showed the 6th through 8th grade scores that they gave when we looked at STEM scopes, and they chose to go with that curriculum. So you can just see that little comparison. The other thing that I want to mention, and Kai's going to go over this, but you're going to see a number, and that's highlighted. It's actually the sum of all those consensus scores. We just thought it might be helpful to look at, but the graphs are really what's most important to look at and what we're highlighting. So I'm going to hand it over to Kai to start presenting that.
All right, so we'll start with the results that the pilot crew found. And as far as student work goes, you can see the 1st and the 5th were the highest. The first one being phenomena and problem. And so this is whether or not the curriculum presents quality phenomena and problems. They were pretty happy with it. The last one, equity. So it's just whether whether it provides equitable learning opportunities with multiple access points to support student learning. And the STEM scores was particularly high in those two. And it wasn't particularly low in anything as far as student work goes. If we look at student progress, you can see the student progress, number 1 and number 2 were relatively high. Number 1 being how do the 3D performance assessments, which or how do assessments use the 3D performance? So 3D performance, remember, in the next generation science standards, there's 3 dimensions: the science and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and then the disciplinary core ideas. So that's what we kind of traditionally thought of as the content in science. But remember, NGSS brought in these sort of other practices as well. So how do so number 1 addresses how do the assessments that are given apply the 3 dimensions of science, 3 dimensions to so students can demonstrate their learning. The second one is about variety. So it's whether there was a wide variety of assessment formats with clear expectations, and we found there were. So it was very strong in that. The one that our group felt was the weakest was the use of assessment, and in this case, what that was defined as is the use of materials to provide for self and peer assessments, so students can reflect on their own learning. So they felt that STEM scopes did not have a lot of opportunity for students to actually go in and reflect upon their own learning. So that was the one that was kind of lower from the student progress. Finally, if you look at the results for teacher support, so how does the STEM scope support teachers in their planning and preparations? You will see that numbers 2 and 3 are relatively high there. So 2 is coherence. So how does the STEM scopes curriculum allow students to link their experiences across lessons so as they go from one lesson to another? The way STEM scopes is organized, there are what we used to call units, which are called segments now, and then they have smaller, what they call scopes, or what we used to think of as chapters within those. So how do those scopes align together? And those are actually linked very coherently around a central phenomena, actually. And then the other one was effective teaching. So whether STEM scopes provides authentic and meaningful phenomena and lesson design. And again, that was something that was very strong in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. All the teachers really liked that part. So finally, if we look at, so this is all revolves around feedback we got from our teachers in the pilot program. But of course, we wanted to talk to the people who actually use this stuff, which are the students. And so we got some results. We put out a survey. We got about 551 responses. And you can see that overwhelmingly, over 96% of them felt were fairly positive about it. 65% of them really liked it. And we dug a little deeper and did ask them to put in the students. We asked them, you know, what did you like about STEM scopes? And so we got a variety of responses. I actually have to say I used ChatGPT and put in all the responses, and they spit out the most common one with some examples. But you can see that the students generally liked the hands-on learning aspect of STEM scopes. It is very hands-on. It's interactive and engaging. They appreciated the fact there was group learning, and they felt in general it had a really positive impact on learning.
All right. And so we also surveyed the parents. We didn't have quite so many responding to that. So we surveyed the parents that had children that participated in the pilot. Those that did look at the curriculum had very positive things to say overall. They love the hands-on learning. They're excited about that. I think these parents that responded just love science, and they were very excited to just see all of the elements. And some even chimed in and shared that their kids really enjoyed this pilot as well, which was nice to hear from them. So our rationale for the adoption is, there is plentiful. The students were really engaged. They liked it a lot. The teachers felt supported, and that was one of those really big pieces that they were sharing before. They were struggling with Elevate in a number of ways of how to do the experiments, because they felt like they didn't have enough guidance or videos, and that piece was answered in STEM scopes. They had guidance on how to connect the 3 dimensions of science that Kai was talking about. So all of those different pieces, it just felt very supportive. In addition to that, they felt that the online part was pretty darn easy to navigate, and that was a area of great concern for the 3rd through 5th grade teachers with our current adopted curriculum. The parent input was strong. The hands-on and digital piece is really strong, and really the ease of use overall in the planning has been quite strong. There was a couple of days when STEM scopes went down, and we both heard from a number of the pilot teachers, because we've extended this pilot period now. I mean, not the pilot period, but the usage period to the end of the year. And they let us know immediately that it was down and they were not happy about it. And that they were planning and they needed the time and please get it back up and running. So we did, but there was a little frustration there. So we were grateful that STEM scopes could also sort it out. So that was great. So looking at the costs for the full implementation, we're looking at approximately $435,000 for the 3rd through 5th grade costs, and this would be for a 3-year contract. So that would then take us up to the end of the science contract that we have with Elevate. So K2 would be finishing up at that same time. And then we can figure out our next steps. And talking about next steps, our plan is to come back to you on April 25th for, to seek board approval. And our plan right now, we've had the pilot, but we've extended that for a soft opening for the pilot teachers. Full implementation would be planned for the fall of 2024. We want to place an order in spring pending your approval. And then professional development, we have some dates already held pending board approval. We want to have summer professional development both in June and in August. So, it just depends on what works best for the teachers. We want to also provide ongoing training and coaching and collaboration, and really emphasize the inquiry-based approach and integration of NGSS. We think this is a great opportunity to have a reset with NGSS too. So these are all of our pieces, and we are open to answer questions. And I know that you will discuss, but if there's anything that we can answer, please let us know.
We will certainly start with questions. We always do. So. Sylvia.
Can you remind me, how long has the 3rd through 5th teachers been using Elevate?
So we're in our 4th year right now. Yeah.
So my follow-up to that, because I feel like I remember when we adopted Elevate.
Yes.
And the feedback on that at the time had been positive.
Yes.
So I'm wondering what happened.
Yeah. So that was before the pandemic. And then we went into our at-home learning, and we were very reliant on the online. I do believe that the online piece wasn't such a priority for teachers coming, up to that point, because they really, were just used to hands-on with the old science program. It all changed. Everything changed with the pandemic. And it's that once the pandemic happened and we really were digging into pieces that we didn't dig into enough, we found that there were areas that were very confusing and challenging, the online part. So, the team was very positive about all of the hands-on, and there's great hands-on, but being able to pull that together in a coherent way has been a challenge for them because of that online piece. Yeah.
And STEM scopes is what we use in the middle schools.
Yes.
Also, I could also add that Elevate changed hands right after the teacher selected it, the company was sold. And so the support level drastically changed as
Right.
well.
Right.
I see. Okay. So help me understand though, with the online piece,
Yes.
I understand how that can be a challenge, obviously, during pandemic. What percentage now, if the online piece was the thing that was challenging in the current
Right.
curriculum, then how much of that is continuing to be a challenge now?
I would say it's still a challenge for the teachers in, utilizing Elevate. They've made some changes, but the navigability of it is not the same as what STEM Scopes offers. So, I think that they still are challenged by it. Yeah.
And then how long have we been using it at the middle school? I also remember that adoption, but I can't remember exactly what it was.
After the pandemic that we adopted STEM Scope. So the history piece on that one was, remember, I kept on coming to you multiple times and the curriculum that we were looking at for middle school, it was just a miss every time. And then the pandemic happened and we had that same situation of like, oh my goodness, we need some online curriculum that we can access. During the pandemic, we tried one curriculum just to see if that would work, did not. STEM Scopes said, hey, you can use ours, and so we did. The teachers loved it. And then we decided to have a pilot after that. So we piloted in the fall of, what would that be? 2021? Yeah. And then did that soft rollout, although everybody wanted to continue to use it and made it more formal in 2022. Yeah.
We also can just mention it wasn't just the online portion that I know is in the slides and there were a lot of conversations about. The teachers were very concerned about the clarity of the teacher manual for teachers as well as the assessments, how well the assessments matched up with what was taught in the lesson. So we had been gathering a lot of feedback about those components as well. And it seems like that part is so much stronger in this option.
And I know when I was wearing my other hat, I heard a lot from teachers about just the assessments themselves didn't have accurate information in them. Like the answer keys weren't correct. Sometimes they had questions with answers that didn't even match the questions. And I think we found that when we've run into those same problems with STEM Scopes, they've been much more willing to work with us and make changes.
The other piece to just understand about the pilot process, with the current adoption, we were relegated to just certain units to use and to pilot. Whereas with STEM Scopes, they're like, have at it, decide what you want to do and we'll support you. You tell us what you want to pilot and we'll get you the materials. It was a very different approach. So we didn't see the whole system for Elevate, which as it turns out was a little bit unfortunate. We didn't have the whole teacher's edition. We didn't have all of, access to everything. We just had what we were provided as the pilot. So, it's better to have access to all. Yeah.
I have more questions, but you can go around.
Come back to you. Okay, Satish.
Okay. No. Is there any reason why only Faria had this STEM scope already, and why there's a consistency issue between
You're right.
other schools versus Faria?
So-
or when did they adapt along with them?
Korea also felt frustration and they decided, you know what, we're going to look at STEM Scopes because the middle school's already using it. So they use their own money to purchase and they can as an alternative school. So we actually learned a lot from them and are grateful for the information that we gathered from them.
Is it not, it is not consistent across? Can we do that way?
So we do allow flexibility with the alternative schools. What we do say is that we're not going to pay or cover the cost of if it exceeds what we're providing to the other schools. So there is flexibility. They do work with Allison and her department when they're exploring some of those alternative type curriculum. This is a standard based. It is accepted from California standards, so it's not deviating from there. But that is one of the allowances at the alternative schools.
Okay. It's not just the cost, like I was wondering, okay, the consistency. And second thing is about the parent participation or parent feedback, right? So we said it's only very limited parents. Typically, I think even in all our past, whether the math or science or anything, we used to have a parent kind of an educational and making them understand then that, there are sessions and stuff. What can you throw a little bit here? What is happening? Why there are less participation?
It was a smaller pool. We were just working with the classrooms of the pilot teachers. We shared out online versions of it. So we gave them multiple pieces to look at, and then they had a survey to complete, which is a little bit easier than asking them to come in and look at it. They got to see what the online aspect looked like. And, typically we will share videos that are created for parents that come from the company. And I don't think that we've had a huge amount of parents on a number of our pilots really share feedback.
Yeah, because I think the students, we have 590 students.
Yeah, because they're in the classroom with us, and we can gather that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Ava, do you have any questions?
I'll just ask one of my questions, and I'm hoping as we go around, some of my colleagues will answer. And if not, we'll come back to round two. Thank you. Thank you, Kai and Marie, for being here. I was learning how STEM Scopes was chosen through the process so that there is a comparison. I also do understand with the time process, it could also be used to compare two or more curriculums at once. So if you can walk me through how STEM Scopes was chosen.
Really, we had already done that, looking at a lot of curriculum and, evaluating it. We had a lot of positive responses already to STEM Scopes. And so the way that we looked at it was to bring that adoption down to third grade. So we were looking at, should we extend this middle school adoption down to third grade? We already had success with it. So that was our decision-making process in why to pilot it, just that particular program. We're already engaged in a 7-year cycle with Elevate. So our feeling was that, once that 7-year cycle is complete, if it's, the will of the district, we could engage in a larger pilot. This is in response to the issues that we were facing with the current adoption.
And to clarify, when initially when they had brought forward and chose Elevate, STEM Scopes was one of them that had been looked at.
Yeah.
Back when that was adopted in 2017, 18,
Yeah.
I believe. So that's where there was a familiarity with STEM Scopes. That had been one that had been looked at.
So what I'm hearing, there hasn't been any exploration of any other curriculum or considered looking at any other curriculum. It's just you went with familiarity.
We had done that previously. So we had looked at a lot of curriculum. We brought the pilot team, 4 years ago down to the county office, looked at all of the curriculum that was available. And we had a process of narrowing down to figure out what were the two that we wanted to pilot. At the time when we did pilot STEM scopes, it was the very first run and there were some errors in it that really upset the teachers. And they said, no, we don't want to even consider something that has errors in it. Those errors have all been cleaned up and we've found that the company has been very responsive. So that's the history of the process.
Okay, that's all, right. Adrian,
quick
can we
question.
ask another question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you want to ask another question?
No, I have lots, but I want to give people a chance. Don't worry. I
Thanks.
gotta read it down.
I'll just ask two. How's about that? So it looks like we asked the students what they like about STEM scope. Did we ask them what they disliked about STEM scope? Or is there anything you can share on that front?
We asked them for comments. There was really not much that we didn't really get good data on that one.
Okay.
So it wasn't something that was commonly brought up.
Nothing significant, it sounded like. So.
Nothing significant. They also make the lecture much better than Elevate.
Okay. All right.
That was a common thread.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second one is on the scoring system, this 135. You know, what if I sort of eyeball the scores, right? On the average, they come out to be a little above 3. And so it makes me feel like it didn't get a lot of 5 votes. And I went back and I pulled up the slide from 4 years ago, and the scores have been pretty consistent. Back then, STEM scope also scored a little above 3. I was just wondering, is that a concern of you, or that should we expect to be seeing 5s, or is sort of a 3-ish thing considered good?
It's hard to get 5s.
It's hard to get 5s.
Really hard to get 5s.
Okay, because Elevate got like 4-ish back then, but I understand. I think you've explained very well all the factors and all that. So, okay, thanks. I'll save mine for later too. So, yeah.
I just have a couple. I'm really excited about 3 through 8 continuity. You know, I hammer on that all the time. So that makes me happy. But I'm wondering, and maybe this is a question for Kai, where do you see the gaps? Where are the teachers going to have to supplement this curriculum? Or do you think it's pretty complete?
It's fairly complete. What I really like about it, I'm sorry.
It looked like assessment.
Assessment, I think, as far as giving students the ability, it's not really built in as much for this. I don't think it's really built in for Elevate either, but the idea that students should be able to self-assess or peer review isn't really built in as much as it probably should be. That would be the biggest thing. They are similar in their approach in that they use what's called the 5E instructional model. So where you, which is an inquiry-based model. So they're similar that way. I found in working with the new teachers, both in elementary and middle school, that STEM scopes is much more easy to navigate when you first get into it. And it's got all sorts of really nice teacher tools. For instance, if you're going to have a hands-on activity, you can type in the number of kids you have, students you have in a class, and how many groups you're going to have, and then it will just spit out how much of each material you need, each item. So that's really easy. I think that STEM scopes goes further in depth than Elevate does into the topics. Another one of the issues we had with Elevate was that they all supposed to start with a phenomenon. It's supposed to sort of engage the students. The Elevate phenomenon wasn't so phenomenal. I didn't put it that way. So the teachers didn't like that as much.
Okay, thank you. I finally finished my school visits. I've been to all of them now, and the feedback I'm getting from the teachers is really, really positive about STEM scopes. So that's just empirical data, but that's what I've gotten. And my last question is there any recovery from the Elevate materials that we already own? I mean, can we sell them to Sunnyvale?
We'll probably utilize some of the materials, definitely. You know, we're looking at how we can do that. And, you know, if there's pieces that aren't utilized, you know, in the science classroom, there's certainly ways that we can use some of these materials as we, engage in Portrait of a Learner and start to expand, maker learning and all of that, it's not going to go to waste. We're gonna find other ways to utilize that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I
Thank
think it's
you.
kind of good that teachers have that exposure because there are some cool, really cool labs in Elevate as well. I'm particularly fond of the making a battery out of potato lab. But so it's good for teachers to have that so they can fall back on that. if they want
More
to,
resources to draw.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna head back to Zoe.
So I think, I mean, I would agree with Phyllis in terms of STEM scopes. I remember rolling it out and I remember the really good feedback, and it's continued to be positive feedback about STEM scopes. And so I don't think I have any specific questions about STEM scopes in particular. I think where my questions / concerns are is maybe what can be learned from the previous pilot adoption and the decisions that went into that. And I understand, like, obviously a lot of things changed with the company itself and then with the world. But I'm just thinking about the amount of resources that went into, rolling out a whole new curriculum, and now we're going to do it all over again 4 years later. And I have that same question, Phyllis, about like, what are we doing with those kits and anything else? And so it's good to know that that's going to continue to be like supplemental material. I think that's important. But as you reflect on kind of what happened with that pilot program and where we are now and what's happening with this pilot program and where we might be a couple of years from now, I would hate for us to 4 years from now be doing the same thing, right? So I guess I'm just wondering, like, what do you think, how could we systematically improve?
Yeah. I mean, I really think that we need full access to the curriculum. And if publishers aren't willing to give us that, to really look at it deeply, then we don't bite. It's not worth it. We need to be able to see everything and see how it works. So, the tricky part, and we heard this from our pilot teachers this year, even though we extended the pilot, they felt like, oh, it's just not long enough. We need more time. We need more time. And that is kind of one of the realities of piloting. We're going to be presenting our findings from world language soon that, we've completed that pilot process. And if you're engaged in a pilot with a product that the teachers are like, oh gosh, I don't think this is a good match, but you've got to complete it. You don't want it to go too long, but then if there's something really great that they love, you want it to go longer. And we really don't know completely until we get into it. So I think just really, the big piece is having full access and being able to see.
I think the other thing you have to remember is that we were going into an adoption and we were adopting for a fundamental change in the way that we teach science. We went from into NGSS, which is so much more inquiry based and so much different than how we taught before. So it's no longer just based on the content, but the disciplinary core ideas. You have these other parts that have to be intertwined into the curriculum as well. So it was a little bit, I think we're going through that learning curve, and it was sort of hard to see, and some teachers I've heard from still sort of are struggling with how do you do all that? The one thing I would like to say is that you talk about the materials. I've done an analysis of all the materials we get in STEM scopes and all the materials we got from Elevate, and there's a lot of overlaps. So, I mean, we'll be able to reuse a lot of those materials.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate the perspective.
So Chief, you have something else?
Yeah, I have only one question here. So I see in the results, right, there is this fifth grade consistency is not there. A lot of variation. Other grade looks at least reasonable in terms of they are consistent in giving their their results. Why do you think there is a one, for example, in the results, like the third item, it's like a 5 for a third grade versus 1 for fifth grade. So page number 7, slide number 7. So
We
we
just
go
switch
there.
the slides up on the screen.
7.
I mean, for student progress or teacher work? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this one. Yeah, 7. So if you see, I see that quite a lot of variation for fifth grade, fifth graders. Is it because they were learning the other one and they have been used to that and there's a change, or because I understand the third grade could be a starting and they're probably good kind of thing. So. Because
I don't know if we dig
Yeah.
deep into that. I would say that the fourth grade is the lowest number of participants.
Yeah.
So it may
At least
be
they're consistent, I see, for grade in general, right? So, but whereas one here, third item, if you see it, there's 1 versus 5 kind of thing. So it's a one is almost like a negative thing, right? So
Yeah.
when you compare to a 5, so and fifth graders may be more, my view is more matured enough to assess. Probably it's a perspective, maybe. So I don't know, and
Yeah.
you think that's something to be worried here?
I think the fifth grade also feels the pressure of the CAS testing that's going on. And, they want to make sure that the kids have all of the information and they can assess. But, that's what the student progress is all about, like different ways to assess and make sure that they've got it and they're solid. Yeah, I can't.
And if you look at the continuity of the cross-cutting concepts and the science engineering practices, they really ramp up as you get into the higher grades, because then you want to have students who are well prepared in fifth grade, because then they're moving into middle school, where it's going to be more rigorous.
I'd also like to just commend Marie and Kai, in working with the teachers on this. I know that also you had some time pass after this was collected and you pulled the team back together to ask, now that we've had a chance to think about all this, what do you as teachers think we should do? Should we move forward with this? Should we bring it to the board? And, you reach that full consensus. Every teacher at that meeting said, yes, this is the right move. We need to bring this forward to the board. So I think, that speaks volumes. And also, it isn't very typical for us to bring forward an adoption again after such a short cycle. But I think really what this says about our entire district, that we're even having this conversation, is that, we listen to our teachers. And, even though it is atypical, they were giving us some really strong feedback that we needed to make a change. And so I feel very grateful that we were able to go through this process, because in many places, you would just have to wait for 7 years until the next cycle came up. And, that's not what we're doing. We're listening and looking for those improvements. And I just really want to say thank you to all the teachers that participated in this, and also Marie and Kai for leading this important work. It has been a wonderful process.
I think also being able to bring those teachers back together after they had a couple more months to work with it too was really, really good for getting feedback from them. And also, it sounds like a 7-year cycle and we only have 3 more years, but you also have to remember, like, that's a kid's elementary school education, right? Mm-hmm. And if there's barriers to teachers teaching science, that's going to ripple up, through middle school and high school. And so when I was union president, and I heard people talking about how much they didn't not like Elevate and how oftentimes they were not teaching it. It just like, as someone who dedicated their life to teaching science, it really, really was hard.
Yeah, so I just why I brought up this one is because when you compare to Elevate, and I think going back to Sylvia's saying a point earlier, like we had great scores and things like that. So any lesson we learned, like we did not want to I know that, but here at least a good reference is middle school is already using and Korea is using. That's good reference. However, they are venturing into that and it should not bounce back later, a kind of, or a short period of living for this. That's why. That's why I was a little worried about the concern about this variation in the scores and things like that.
Mhm.
Technical question, on your survey, I'm just wondering, the 55 and the 47, is that the number of students who took the survey? I'm just clarifying on your slide, if you go to the slides 6.
Your bold red numbers up.
The bold red numbers, 6 and 7.
Yeah, so those bold numbers are just the sum of the results. So you've got like in SW1, there's 2 5s and a 3. And then, yeah, if you added up all of those scores, that's the number it would come to. It's just the sum of the scores.
Okay, so how many students actually took the survey out of how many that participated in the pilot?
These are the teachers.
The teachers are giving us their feedback in the first 3 slides. So this is, you know.
And they're responding to questions about student work that they've given to the students.
So if you go back to, I think it's the slide 3 where you show the.
561 is the total students.
This is the example
So
of
how
the
many?
rubric they were using. So that wasn't for the kids to look at, that was for the teachers to analyze the pilot.
Oh, okay.
And so then these are all that's teacher analysis, either, you know, as a group. So all the 3rd grade teachers came together, all the 4th grade, all the 5th grade. And they gave a consensus score, either it was a 1, 3, or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what that represents. And it's, you know, in bold, it's just the sum of those scores, but
Okay.
the graph is probably a lot more telling for you. But when we get to the student feedback, we gave them a survey.
Oh.
And that's the response. That's one of the responses to the survey. And then we also just asked them, you know, an open-ended.
So with the pilot program, how many students participated?
I mean, that's probably pretty close. I would imagine we had absences, but you know, it was. Well, we had 17 schools, how many teachers, we could figure it out.
Multiply the you have the teachers there, so the teachers would be.
Just wondering if
in there.
you're doing a survey, I would just want to see how many kids actually took the survey.
I could go back and do.
560, 50.
Like out of how many possible? Yeah. I just wanted to see that. And then the other question was how long? Because I heard the presentation, it says fall to December. So like how long did the teachers were able to pilot? Because I've been visiting schools and asking them about the ones who pilot. Some people said, oh, I only did it for 2 weeks. So like, I'm kind of wondering like, how long was it for and was it consistent throughout the district? How long the teachers presented and it was a duration, was it certain targeted units? I'm not sure.
Yeah, all of that. So there was a duration, it was about 6 weeks. And they did, the teachers decided which units they wanted to pilot, you know, as a grade level. So that we could mix apples with apples. And we extended the pilot at least another week. Up until the December break, because we wanted to make sure that they had enough time. I think some delayed. And that's the issue. Like if there's some that you talked to that said that they didn't do it for the full time, it's because they delayed the start. But the end was at the end of December. Now, after that, we were able to allow them to just continue to use it. But we evaluated we evaluated the experience in January, early January. And it has now been open to them to continue to use, but they're not piloting anymore. They've just chosen to continue to use it.
And they really wanted to continue.
Yes.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I saw that you put in student response and results and parent results. And so I guess the teacher results were on page 8. And it looks like and I kind of have an analysis like there were 5 out of 15, which is 1/3 scored them as 3s. And if you mix the 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, fifth grade teachers, so, excuse me, and 10 out of 15 scored them in the average of 3s. So the average is around 3. And if you look at the feedback for the middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th, it's you have 1/3 scoring 5s. Or not 1/3, even less than 1/3, 3/15 scoring 5s, 2/3 scoring 3s, and 2 out of 15 were scoring 1s in terms of teacher support. So it's even lower at middle school. So it's not scoring too hot. But then again, I do agree with you with the feedback. The teachers do not like Elevate. They do not think it's effective. And we've heard the reasons, and I really do appreciate Allison explaining the history and what has happened, and Sylvia for asking the question. And do agree, they don't like Elevate. They want something better. But is this really better if they're only given one thing to try out? And I know that in our district, we really work really hard in the other to explore other curriculum to say what is the best that we can give to our students to be effective. I know things happen, like when we adopted Elevate, it was good, but going through this again and looking at the numbers don't seem too hot. I know that when we looked at supplementary materials for do the math and Sunday, the results were more than 60%, and the results from the student performances actually showed through. So I'm also concerned about the amount of time that we've had to implement sometimes. So that consistency part. So thanks.
Okay, Jerry.
Okay, I don't have any questions, just comments. First of all, I want to thank you for being responsive to the input from our teachers and taking steps to address those. I think, in a large organization, a lot of times it's probably easier to go with inertia than to sort of do the right thing. And I appreciate really y'all just, Ed Services taking the initiative to gather folks back up and sort of, look at this again and get the tools to the teachers that they want. I can certainly understand a lot. I mean, 4 years, maybe not a lot in curriculum life. It's actually a lot in real time life, right? And so, like Allison, like you said, vendors change and things, so I certainly very much appreciate that things can be very different now or, than what we had looked at a couple of years ago. And I much rather, and I know, we don't want things to go to quote unquote waste, but there are things we can reuse. And I much rather make sure that our teachers, because this is actually in the overall scheme of things, not like a huge amount of money. I much rather they have the right tools. And like what Kai said, this 3 years is a long time. I mean, you go from a second grade to fifth grade or whatever. And so, like what Sylvia said earlier, right? Whatever lessons we can take from the evaluation, we want to do that. But I certainly wouldn't want y'all to not, like, if there things like this happen again in the future, you feel like there are opportunities to improve the kind of tools we have, that I would love to, please continue to do so. I understand some of also what Ava, I'm sorry, it's been a long day looking at it, like 3 letters. Sorry, Ava, about the sort of looking at this, but the message I'm getting is Elevate isn't working, right? This is not what people want. And so we should not have Elevate. I see that the cost share is for 3 years. I'm assuming people don't buy curriculum for a year. And so, but it's, 400K, relative to like a lot of other things. The thing is, this is a good decision. It's a good choice. Thank you for doing it, the right thing rather than maybe the easier thing. And I fully support the adoption. Thanks.
I think we would have liked to have a longer pilot, but there's, logistics involved in getting this stuff, making orders. And we did have Faria, who in essence was a school that went to it, and we had that data as well, which helped drive our decision.
That's better than anything we could have an actual implementation and the satisfaction with it. So yeah, it's a very good point, Kai. Yeah. Okay, thanks, Phyllis.
I just want to speak for a minute to the pilot process. I think we have a really robust, good pilot process in this district, all the way from teachers are involved at every level, all the way from vetting the state recommended materials, deciding what we're going to pilot, going through the pilot process, the kind of data we get at the end. I've been, how many years I've been in this district. I don't ever remember dumping something in the middle of an adoption. So I think the fact that, as Allison said, we were willing to listen to the teachers and say, this isn't working, it's not what's best for our kids, let's make the change, I think is really laudable. So thank you for doing that. And again, I'm really happy that it's going to span the grades from 3 to 8 and not split at the middle school. So like Jerry, I support this adoption.
Board, we would like to bring it back as an action item at the next board meeting.
So let's make sure that's okay with it. Are there any last things to say or questions to ask? Okay, then yes. Consent would be great.
And if you have more questions about it, feel free to reach out to me.
Action.
Oh, I'm sorry, action, not consent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Good presentation. Any public comment?
No.
Okay. She looks at me. She didn't think I was going to say it. Okay, let's go to board activity. Anybody have anything to report? There's been a lot going on in the district.
Oh.
Have we reported on the meeting with the union president?
No, why don't you do that?
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's okay. So Phyllis and I had our sort of quarterly meeting with the union president. So we met with Kate and Purnima from CSEA. I think some of the
Omar couldn't be there.
Omar, yeah, I think he wasn't able to make it. I think just off the top of my, some of the topics we talked about. One was basically talking about the distribution of information to staff at the different sites. And we talked about basically ways to do it so it's more consistent and timely and all that, right? So there's that. We discussed, let me see, availability of some of the forms, I think, and there was a sort of a long discussion also around the incident forms and then the analysis of those and insights and sort of just folks getting, they fill out the form and kind of getting the sort of, I guess, the insights or the things that come out of these forms. Those are the three things I remembered. I think, I don't know if there was anything else.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? Jerry, anything else?
Oh, no, I think that's what I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Keith,
Phyllis and I, we had staff office hours. Actually. Staff
Okay.
office hours. Yeah. Yeah.
Go
So.
for it.
Okay, so anyway, I don't want to say how many people were attending, but however, we had very less number of people attended, but we had some good conversation with at least a specific person, employee. So it was good, and a lot of good questions came up, and
we had Allison chime in.
yeah, thanks.
Which was great.
Yeah. So we had, we had some, as and when the questions were going more and more difficult, one we had to take Allison's help actually. So she helped us out, and thanks for that. And Sylvia also was there as I think in the, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Sylvia, Ava, anything to report?
You go ahead.
Stereo.
Go ahead.
I went to the Special Olympics last week, and I think you went yesterday. It was amazing. And can I just shout out Alpana? She's one of our special ed, I'm gonna forget her title. Program managers that put together this whole thing, initiated the whole thing, worked with Special Olympics, not special ed, Special Olympics to come and do the program. And it was amazing. There were 7 different events, soccer and basketball and bowling and balance, and I don't remember all the other ones, but the way that it was an inclusive competition, and so that the students all were partnered up and able to have buddies to compete. It was so good. And I'm so glad that we started it, and I hope that we can grow it. I hope that other elementary schools will, within our district, I know the ones that piloted it. Thank you for those that piloted it, and I hope that it can continue to grow because it's amazing. And it's something that our district should be definitely doing. So, and my other thing is, are we going to talk about the decorations in here? Is that can I make that as part of my activity? I really want to know like what's happening. Is there somebody who can explain that?
We could invite Michelle up to the podium.
I would be happy to explain. So next week is Week of the Young Child. And our Cooperdoodle preschoolers all made decorations for you and for all of the district and anyone who visits to enjoy. So these came from all of our classrooms at the Montclair campus and our new Meyerholtz campus. So that's where it came from. And it's all based on what we've done together before with our play-based learning and getting in there and hands-on. So this is for everyone to enjoy.
And some of us have the opportunity to read to the Cooperdoodlers next week.
Absolutely. And if you haven't had a chance to sign up, we have time slots for next week, and you can come in and read to any classroom that you'd like. They'd love to have you. We had a special guest, early guest this week. So maybe she might want to mention something.
I was gonna say it segues beautifully, but I have to say, Phyllis, out of all the events, you also went to the Special Olympics to kick it
I
off.
went to both of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't kick it off. So this one.
Well,
Stacey
the
did.
email indicated, because I wasn't able to go until later, but you were able to do that. And you mentioned that you have visited all the schools now. And so since this week is my spring break where I work, I got to use the time to go visit the school. So I was able to go visit Sedgwick and the Cooperdoodle program. So this week to go and read, it was adorable. And reading the kids, I may take a little bit longer than usual because I asked them engaging questions. It was absolutely so fun to see the kids and the dynamics and seeing the 2 different campuses too. And it's really good to see that there is that need in our area for Cooperdoodle because they offer extra hours, because our TK program ends around 2 typically, and Cooperdoodle offers care until 4 and education and until 6 as well. So it was great. I get to visit both campuses, Montclair and at Meyerholtz. Went to Lincoln, rescheduled Lawson, and then Dilworth, and went to, and then today I visited Blue Hills, checked in at McAuliffe, and visited Miller. Been busy. That's what I'm going to just say. And then we had the last superintendent awards at the same time. There was a week old notification of going to VTA's Homestead Corridor Safe Routes to School update project. So I was worried because it was only 1 week notice, but the community turned out, which is great. There were probably 50 people, 50 or 60, and they had the blown up maps of the drawn proposals. And I think moving forward is how are we going to get it fully funded so it continues to go forward, and the process of how that funding works. And the community was there from different areas from the bike pedestrian in the city of Sunnyvale and Cupertino, and our parents, Safe Routes to School groups were there, along with Fremont Union High School District. Their board member, their superintendent was there, and their parents who were concerned too. So,
And wasn't Chris there for us? as
yes,
well?
Chris was
Yeah.
there for us too. Yes.
Anything else anybody has to report about activities? I did the Teacher of the Year committee, which the board president does every year. And I've been to, 2 days this week, I was with the New Taipei group, and then I was able to get to Meyerholtz yesterday, not Meyerholtz, John Muir yesterday, to see the Chinese production that the kids put on. It was just awesome. It's really cute. Well done. So, yeah, so I've been busy as well. Mrs. Yao, what would you like to tell us?
Nothing to add.
Okay, so agenda setting, we want to bring back that discussion we talked about. Anything else under agenda setting?
The discussion, the enrollment balance.
With the enrollment discussion, right? We wanted, that's gonna be the 25th, I think she said.
Okay, and and that would include the Sunnyvale Square discussion too, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
And
And
I want to get some update on the solar stuff also. How is it going?
on the solar,
Yeah, installations and things of that. And especially I think somebody raised a concern.
well, we had that parent.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sent the
apparently. So I
email.
would like to see that, how is it overall going and any feedback we are getting from the neighborhood and things of that, because I know that we approved and things of that. I know Chris and team are doing a great job in putting it, but would like to hear a little bit more on that.
Okay. Anything else?
We had a public comment at the beginning of the meeting, and I'm just wondering if maybe staff can address it a little bit more in the Friday memo. Sure.
Happy to do that.
The anti-Semitism comments? Yeah.
Yeah, just the follow-up report.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, anything else? I don't have anything more. Okay, I think we're done.
Thank you for finishing.